Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of multi-class endurance racing as brought to you by the UK sim racing community, hosted on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today we take a look back at the special event that was held in November 2022 at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, continuing the theme of 90-minute endurance, raining on from, of course, the Stars and Stripes round that occurred in September 2022 at the Daytona road course in the United States of America. But having traded out the spectacle of Daytona for the quaint countryside of the county of Kent in the United Kingdom, we are here at the venerable tarmac of the 2.3 mile long circuit of Brands Hatch Grand Prix, what is expected to be a fast, ferocious and very tricky round with that, with this circuit of course being very technical in nature and difficult to overtake. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here as our drivers practice in the background and get themselves ready to race. Let's take you through a little bit of initial groundskeeping and whatnot with regards to tonight's broadcast. This broadcast is being brought to you as a post-round broadcast, whereby the racing action you are seeing in the background is not live. It occurred as of Wednesday the 9th of November this year, but we're going to bring it to you as if it were live for your viewing pleasure, and I, as your host and commentator, do not know how our drivers get on in terms of practice, in qualifying, or indeed in the race itself. It's all going to be completely new to me, and therefore it will be as close as possible to the raw live experience for you guys and girls tuning in at home, watching and listening in as our drivers get ready to go racing across the three classes. Indeed, three spectacular classes of car continuing on from Daytona as well, where we have the GT4s, the touring car racing class machines or the TCRs, and then the small cuties as they're nicknamed, which are the Mazda MX5s, and more on the classes and what we can expect of them in short order. But speaking of this broadcast, it is also being brought to you via the official UK Sim Racing YouTube channel, and if you're not subscribed to the UK Sim Racing YouTube channel, then why not do so today to make sure that you're able to stay up to date with all the latest broadcasts, whether they're live or post round, as the UK Sim Racing community continues to grow. Indeed, as we charge into 2023, we're looking to expand and run ever more series for your viewing pleasure. And indeed, if you are a sim racing driver and you race on iRacing, of course, we've got plenty of series coming up, and you may just be interested about them, and more on those in a brief moment. Now, speaking of brief moments, let's not waste any more time in going onto our circuit for today, and that is the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Located near the village of West Kingsdown in the county of Kent of the United Kingdom, particularly in the country of England, this 9-corner course is a very simplistic course on paper, as you can see from the circuit map provided us by simracingwiki.com. Thank you to them as always for their circuit maps. However, saying it's a simple circuit based on a two-dimensional image is perhaps one of the most underwhelming statements regarding the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, because simply put, a 2D image does not capture the number of elevation and gradient changes over the course of the lap, with some of the gradient changes being up to 8 or 7% in nature over the course of the lap. As our drivers charged away on around the 2.3 mile course, you can imagine our drivers have to contend with not just 9 very different corners which test different capabilities of the car, but also they have to be bold, they have to be confident and adjust to when they're going downhill, turtly changing camber over the course of the apex, with a number of these corners being off camber, some of them being heavily cambered and some being in between, and therefore it comes down to the grit and determination of the driver, the knowledge in the class car and machinery, and then being able to put it all together to put a lap together. And what does a lap mean around this circuit? Was our drivers make the way down the start finish straight, charging up towards turn number 1. They'll go for a rise into the braking zone for Paddock Hill bend at turn number 1, and as they trail brake the way in towards the apex, they'll find they begin to drop down for an 8% gradient change as they come roaring on down the hill and then up to turn number 2. Charging up into the Druid's hairpin as it's named, and they'll be braking hard there, while the slowest corners on the circuit is one of the major overtaking opportunities for our drivers, along with the start finish straight as they look to battle the way on the brakes into the hairpin. Coming out to Druids, they'll make their way downhill into Graham Hill bend at turn number 3, a short run down into the off camber corner, and they make the way on the curve straight which runs parallel to the pit straight up towards turn number 4. Named Surtees, it's a very tricky corner, and some would like to nickname it that corner that has an apex that never arrives, because when you do see the apex, you've got to get back on the power immediately for the charge up the back straight. But the key thing about Surtees corner is it's uphill and it's a decrease in radius turn, which means that as you go tighter and tighter towards the apex, the circuit is closing more and more, and the racing line does become very tricky to navigate indeed. But we could see plenty of overtaking opportunities at turn number 4. Making their way then up towards turn number 5, they'll charge up towards Hawthorne's corner via Pilgrim's Drop, which is going to be a descent into the rise of Hawthorne's at turn 5, a medium speed corner which is all about getting back on the throttle as soon as possible and using the camber of the corner to balance the throttle out before our drivers make their way down the Derek Minter straight up towards turn number 6 at Westfield Bend. Coming through the right hander there, it's all about carrying as much speed as possible as they make their way downhill through Dingledale and up into turn 7 Sheen Curve, also known as Dingledale Del, depending on your interpretation. And as our drivers make the way through the fast right-hander, where it's all about having the guts to be able to get on the throttle, we're a blind uphill apex curve. They'll be making their way into Sterling's Bend at turn number 8. Hard on the brakes, another overtaking opportunity at turn number 8 before they make their way down the back straight. From turns 8 through to 9, the final stretch if we all down clearways and up into Clark Curve at turn number 9, where the circuit rejoins where the Indy loop would cut across Surtees and Clark and make their way through the right-hander at turn number 9 and do it all again. Sounds simple, sounds straightforward? I don't think so, and I think you'll agree with me. There's more to this circuit than meets the eye, and enough of looking at a circuit map. Let's come to our live pictures here once again and take you through our schedule for tonight. We can see there that currently we are in practice, and we do have a few more minutes to go in this practice session. Approximately about 8.5 minutes or so before our drivers then make their way into this qualifying session that's upcoming. 10 minutes. It's going to be a closed qualifying session, as I've been informed, and that means that all of our drivers will have 3 laps at their disposal, or 10 minutes in total, depending on which one comes first, in order to put in their best possible laps. After that, we'll be making our way to the grid for our 90-minute feature race, and of course, the aim of the game there is to be the winner in your respective class. And whilst we are expecting pit stops to play out, it's up to our drivers when they decide to pit, and indeed that means it all comes down to strategy and knowing when to make those key overtakes, knowing when to fuel save and tyre save, and also whether to work your way around the other class traffic, something which we saw, of course, at Daytona. A number of our TCR class drivers, and particularly our GT4 class drivers, have to navigate because, of course, the GT4's been the fastest of the 3 classes and having to cut their way around the MX5s and the TCRs. But here we are going to see quite an interesting contrast of the lap times, where we could expect to see some of the laps from what would be our GT4 class cars being quite close to the TCR class cars, because, of course, the TCRs being very focused on handling, and handling is what Brands Hatch is absolutely loved for. And indeed, if you're a massive fan of touring car, you'll know that the UK TCR series and also the British Touring Car Championship series is hosted here every year, with BTCC, of course, visiting twice, both the Brands Hatch Indy Loop in the early stages of a year, and at the very end, much like in 2022, the championship is concluded at the Grand Prix circuit. But with an ambient temperature today of what is 23 degrees centigrade and a track temperature of 26 degrees centigrade currently, it's quite moderate temperatures, and as a result, that means our drivers should be expecting that tyre wear is not going to be overly aggressive, with quite a bit of humidity and also cloud in the air. That will also help with that tyre management, and it may just see our drivers extend their tyres a little bit longer compared to what they may usually do. And particularly at Daytona, of course, a lot higher in terms of track temperature there, and we definitely saw our drivers really having to work it to the bone. But as our drivers make their way around here, we do have a slight glitch with regards to our timing tower, and we do see here Damien Lovitt making his way on down all the way up towards what is the Pilgrim's Drop, and there he goes on down and up towards Hawthorne's. He charges from the Symphony Esports white GT4 Aston Martin V8 Vantage, and you'll have to forgive us for those slight timing glitches there on our timing tower screens. We'll see those updates, of course, when we go into qualifying and the race. Those are limitations on the iRacing replay file, and of course we should point out to you if we do have anything that does happen over the course of the race and we don't quite catch it on camera, we will not be able to go back and take a quick look at that, and that is due to the nature again of that taking a look at an iRacing replay file. But all the same, we'll try and capture everything we can for you, and well, let's talk a little bit about the individual car classes here with just under 6 minutes to go before we head into qualifying. So we start off, of course, with the GT4s as we look from Damien Lovitt to Adam Holloway, another one of our GT4 drivers, and running around in the Porsche Cayman 718. Now we do have what is there three types of GT4 available today. We have the Aston Martin Vantage V8, we have the Porsche Cayman 718 as being piloted by the BPR Esports driver, and we also have the BMW M4. And speaking of the BMW M4, we have Sam Gunstone, our sole BMW M4 driver here, and of course Sam Gunstone, one of the big names at Daytona, achieving a big success there and looking to try and continue that here today. But the GT4s, of course, road class cars in the fact that you would take a BMW M4, and this being the older model with the arrival of the new controversial grilled BMW M4. But let's stay with the model that preceded, of course, dating back to 2019, as we see Gunstone making his way into Hawthorne's corner. This car you'd see on the road, packing over what is over 400 horsepower, and of course these cars being down-tuned slightly to around the 400 horsepower region. And you'll notice there that the road car has had a rear wing added to it, also some slight aerodynamic refinements, and put the two together, essentially you now have a race car, also with some tweaks to the brakes and also slick tyres. But otherwise, these are cars that you could see driving on the traditional road, albeit depending on how pricey your pockets are. As we see Gunstone there almost losing it, and that would have cost him quite a bit of an arm and leg there if he had put the car into the wall. But of course, we do have the Aston Martin V8 Vantage there, and of course, perhaps one of the more expensive and exquisite of our GT4s, but still being raced. And the interesting thing about the Aston Martin V8 Vantage GT4 car is that whilst this car made in the United Kingdom, the engine actually powering the car is a Mercedes engine with a turbo system thrown in there, and it is a very similar performance performance engine to what is the engine power plant of the Mercedes-AMG GT4, which will not see in attendance tonight due to limitations on the number of cars in class in terms of car choice type. But as we look from Jonathan Hitchin here, the prototype making its way up towards Clark Curve, let's then come on to our TCRs. And of course, the GT4 is expected to be the fastest due to their overall balance of their handling characteristics and also their straight line speed characteristics. All lacking in straight line speed acceleration perhaps, but not lacking in cornering capabilities, it is the touring car racing class machines. And we see one of them here, Jay Colley, in the number 89 Honda Civic Type R. And we have two cars on availability today, and that is the Honda Civic Type R and also the Hyundai Elantra, unless I've been mistakenly informed. And well, what are these cars all about? Well, they're front engine and front wheel drive. They are all to that format, whereas the GT4s can be a combination. Oh, goodness me, and that is Stephen Hilton getting it very wrong there in the Monster MX5 and taking Calais to the tyre barrier with him as we look to Rob Jackson. In fact, we do also have Velocitors in attendance here, so we do have the Hyundai Veloster as well, which is fantastic to see. So 3 different touring car racing class machines available to our drivers, but not the Audi RS3. But the key thing about these touring car racing class machines is they are all the same drivetrain in terms of front engine, front wheel drive, and that means that it's the front tyres who do all of the hard work in terms of power deployment, cornering, you name it, they've got to do it. The rear tyres get a lucky brake guy comparison, but what this also means is these cars are very focused on handling, but also that balance of power versus cornering. If you get it wrong, you're going to understeer coming out of a corner, and that means you go straight on instead of rotating through the corner, but get it right, however, and you'll come through those corners with a very nice apex speed, and that is where our TCRs are going to be stronger compared to our GT4 class cars, but put them on the straights and that's where our GT4s are going to fly by comparison. You may also notice here, of course, that these TCR racing class machines are quite similar to their road counterparts. If you go out to the United States, you can buy off your local Hyundai dealer a Hyundai Veloster N from the N Performance division of Hyundai, and also you can do the same with regards to their Elantra model, as we do look for one making its way around. And there is El Neil in the Impulse Racing Elantra, and of course El Neil, our winner last time out at Daytona in the TCR class, and having a spectacular win by a significant margin, albeit there were a couple of instances for other drivers which did knock them out of the running when they looked quite close on pace, but El Neil, the one to make no mistakes whatsoever and absolutely drive it home, and can he make it another win today? But the Elantra, of course, another marketable car, and the Honda Civic Type R, well, we're speaking about the FK8 edition of the Honda Civic Type R, with the FL5 recently being made available to the global market, and it can be on your driveway in the United Kingdom, of course, the FL5 for £47,000 starting price. But these are road cars, albeit they're the higher spec road cars, and then they've been adjusted for the purposes of racing conditions. Now, what about our Mazda MX-5s by comparison, as we look to Murray Luca here, who makes their way all the way down into Graham Hill Bend? Well, the Mazda MX-5 Roadster here is a classic Cup car. In terms of these are the cars that you'd see racing in the Sunday Cup leagues, and these cars are very lightweight in terms of the fact they've had a lot of the inner shell taken out of them. You can see the roll cage there protruding. There's no roof over the car. It's just a simple window visor for the driver, and then a roll cage around and behind them. Whereas these cars have been lightened, and therefore they can race very closely to one another with racing brakes and slick tyres. As we see the Symphony Esports orange driver making its way up towards Hawthorne's corner as he comes into the right-hander here, looking very smooth indeed. But these cars are going to be significantly slower compared to their GT4 and their touring car racing class counterparts. So what makes them fun to drive? Well, it's the fact they're very light. Also, they do not pick up too much speed on corner exit in terms of acceleration. So the name of the game in the MX-5 is to carry as much speed as possible from corner to corner. The idea is you want to effectively almost be sliding your way through these corners. Even at under braking, you want the rear to come round you, albeit the car being front engine rear wheel drive, but still, if you can nail that, it's going to work out very nicely. Front engine, because the engine's in the front, rear wheel drive because the rear tyres have the power deployed to them, and it's the front tyres that do the cornering. But of course, as we saw there for a brief moment for Roxanne Marshall, as she goes a bit wide there coming out of the final corner, a bit unfortunate for Marshall, in the fact that when you get caught behind an MX-5, when you've got that speed differential, well, it's going to be a little bit of a pain point if you're in the faster class car. And with the Brands Hatch circuit being so narrow, as you can see on the pictures behind us, that does mean that overtaking opportunities are going to be the result of driving in front, making an air alternative. You get a really good run out of the corner and being bold on the brakes into the next corner, and also you're going to have to be patient when you're trying to come past cars of another class. But as we make our way in to the qualifying session then, 10 minutes, and we are going to be seeing the perspective of El Neil from Impulse Racing, who has kindly provided us with the iRacing replay file, and we'll get to see their laps in short order. Whilst we're waiting for El Neil to make the way out on circuit, if you are enjoying the broadcast and you've been enjoying enjoying all the racing that we've put on this year at UK Sim Racing. And if you ever wondered how you can potentially support the community, did you know there's a way to do so, a very quick way to do so, in fact, via our affiliates. For UK Sim Racing is affiliated with multiple sim racing and real-world motorsport companies, including Swillier and Meta Sim Racing Coaching, Race Anywhere, Demon Tweaks, and Amazon. And if you do head to our website, that's uksimracing.co.uk today, and you can see our website here on screen, you'll notice there is a link on the top left-hand side, which is discount stroke affiliate links. And if you click on that link, you'll be taken to our affiliates page, and they are the companies that we mentioned earlier. And if you click on any of our affiliates images, you can make purchases through their websites with discounts automatically applied based on the affiliation status, and these purchases will result in discounts for you as the consumer and a kickback to us in turn. And because of the fact that we are a non-profit organisation at UK Sim Racing, all of our affiliate earnings will go back into the community to fund future series, including our upcoming GT3 League for 2023 Season 9 and our Porsche Cup Season 5 League as well, and more on that towards the end of today's show. And also on top of that, on our official Discord, the UK Sim Racing Discord, which if not a part of, you can always go to the heart of all the racing action on the Discord. Some of our affiliates provide discount codes as well. And remember, a little purchase can go a long way in supporting UK Sim Racing. But as we cut back to our pictures here of our driver making their way on around, I can see what also can go a long way, and that is a good qualifying lap at Brands Hatch, because as we only said moments ago, this circuit very tight and narrow, and what that means for the driver when it's that tight, it is going to be a very tricky course to navigate when you're under race conditions. And with overtaking being difficult, you can imagine if you're on pole and you're able to make a good start and hold on to pole position as you make your way up to Druids Bend and out of it, and the drivers behind start fighting, you can start to pull whole seconds on the rest of the field as they battle their way behind you, and in turn you run off into the distance and give yourself the strategic advantage. Now, of course, at Daytona Road Course, the circuit was all about the slipstream, and therefore our drivers had a lot of opportunities to close back up to one another, and we will see the toe player factor down the run through clearways here as O'Neill makes his way in at 2 o'clock curve, and also on the start-finish straight, I believe it's known as the Brabham straight, but do not quote me on that. We're just going to refer to it as the pit straight, and as he makes his way down towards turn at number 1 here, he's going to be going on to his first flying lap. We're going to ride on board for his second flying lap, however, as O'Neill makes his way on around. And the reason we're going to be doing that, simply put, is because we'd like to get the perspective once he's got those tyres fully up to temperature as well, with the fact currently right now the touring car racing class machines do take approximately 2 fast laps, so the out lap where you push it a little bit hard and then you go onto your first flying lap, and it's come at the second flying lap that's where you really do start to see those tyre temperatures in the windows. We see a bit of a wobble there for O'Neill in the car going deep, but of course tyre temperature coming in, and with only 3 laps on the chalkboard, what that means is he's not got many opportunities in order to get it right, and with not too many opportunities available, that in turn does mean the pressure is really on. So it really is a fire cooker of a situation here. If you don't have 3 good laps in qualifying, you may just find yourself qualifying very far down indeed, and in turn that could really compromise your race strategy. You have to adapt your strategy in order to compensate for the fact you're now qualified behind multiple drivers, and you're going to have to battle your way hard in the opening stages of the race. And meanwhile, your main rival, who you see in terms of pace, may just find themselves running off into the distance, and then you've got to try and close the gap somehow. And indeed, the undercut and the overcut, very strong strategy opportunities at Brands Hatch, because the simple reason is track position is king. As O'Neill makes his way there through Sterling's corner and heading down towards Clark Curve once again via clearways, we get it ready to ride on board with the Hyundai Elantra N driver as they make the way through the final corner and head on to what will be another fast lap very shortly. And we bring up the dashboard in the bottom right corner of your screen so you can keep track of their gears and also their speed as they head in towards Paddock Hill bend at turn number 1. Across the line and braking just before the 50-metre wall, about 65 metres, trail braking in, dropping to third, and as soon as they touch the apex curve, getting the power on immediately, and uphill they go in towards Druids Bend. Onto the brakes of the 50-metre wall here, trail braking in as late as they dare, down to first gear on corner apex, fighting with understeer as they get the power back on, and now heading downhill in towards Grand Hill Bend. Again, braking at the 50 board here, staying in third and powering on out, use the cornering capabilities of the car, who are heading their way up towards 30's Bend. Now you see the 50 board on the right hand side, we're going to go a bit deeper than that, we're going to go to about 40 metres under braking, and then roll the car into second gear, and then get a nice light apex and power, and that is how you take 30's right there as he makes his way now down towards Pilgrim's Drop. Into the drop he goes here, through the depression, building up towards top speed of the TCR car, and end up into Hawthorne's here. Uphill braking zone, 50 metres board once again. Fifth gear down to fourth, will he drop to third as well as he hits the apex at 97 miles an hour, stays in fourth, and makes his way now up into Westfield Bend. Braking about 55 metres here, we'll see our GT4's braking about 65 metres, coming down to third, now powering through Dingledale, and up the hill he goes into Sheen. Look for the right hand, and where is it? And there it is, Sunday, and that's where Sheen Curve is, the trickiest corner on the circuit, many would argue, as he now makes his way in at two Sterlings, braking out the Marshall's post at the 50 metre board, coming through the left hand in third gear, and now powering all the way down towards Clark Corner. Now here, it's all about getting to that apex nice and early and then get the power back on. Brings it down to fourth, down to third, gets the power on, a little bit understeer, creeps in, just about keeps it in track limits, brings the car over to the right, and as he charges towards the timeline, what's it going to be? Well, he's not going to bring it all the way over to the right as the white flag waves, and it's going to be one more lap for El Nil, but you could see there, he brought it over to the right initially and then felt, I think, they had one more and one better lap at his disposal as he heads up the hill, but that was a 32.813. Of course, we can't give you a relative comparison to any of our other drives, what has been a close qualifying session at the moment, but that data will all be available when we head to the grid. But El Nil definitely nailing that lap on a beautiful reference lap there, and if he was on the ultimate perfect lap or looking to try and make the lap even faster, what he would have done on the start finish straight is pulled the car all the way over to the right hand side, because it does straighten the run to the timing line for the completion of the qualifying lap. As he heads through at 30s once again, El Nil definitely looking clocked in as he even looks to go on a faster lap right now, going what is a personal best in the opening two subsectors. Of course, this circuit typically broken up into three major sectors, but in iRacing it's broken up into 6 subsectors by comparison, but we're not complaining here as El Nil does drop a little bit of time in the run out of 30s up towards Hawthorne's, and now he's going to look to try and recover that time as much as possible as he heads through Westfield and down into Dingledale. But of course, the problem with this circuit is once you lose a little bit of speed at one corner, it really starts to compound your woes going into the next sequence of corners, and particularly if you get it wrong at Westfield Bend, you will end up losing all the speed in the run up towards Sterling's, and therefore pinpoint precision is demanded of you as a driver all the way throughout as El Nil heads down towards turn number 9 into Clark once more, and this will be his final qualifying lap here as he heads to the right-hander. And what's it going to be for El Nil as he comes on through to complete his qualifying session here? Will it be a further improvement from a 32.813? It's across the timeline, and well, it is going to be a 32.432, albeit we've seen that our timing tower there slightly glitching, so that was a 3-minute lap, but indeed it was a improvement, and well, we'll now have to wait and see what's going to put him on the grid for the purposes of our one and only race today, as the checkered flag is out on this qualifying session for El Nil, and we very shortly get ready to go racing. We will be right back, ladies and gentlemen, in a brief moment to go racing. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it's time for us to go racing. Let's take you through the grid. So our drivers line up as follows for the November 2022 Multiclass Enduro hosted by UKSimRacing on iRacing here today at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. In the GT4 class and overall, Damien Lovick took pole position in the Symphony Esports White Machine at 29.123. Out qualifying Adam Holloway to pole by only 1/10 of a second, the BPR Esports driver makes it a Porsche Aston Martin front row. Behind them on row number 2, the combination of Jonathan Hitchin and Sam Gunstone line up together, where the two privateers will go toe-to-toe into turn number 1. Samuel Hooper and Alex Holloway make up row number 3, and behind them we have Roxanne Marshall, the last of our GT4s, qualifying P7, starting off row number 4. Join them on the 4th row, but falling back come the start of the race as per the rule set, where our classes will have to separate by a couple of seconds for safety. El Nil took pole position in the TCR racing class. In the Impulse Racing Elantra, taking pole position in the end by 1.2 seconds over Jay Goulet, the privateer, who starts off our 5th row, joined by Ian Manners from Samside Azure. Then on row number 6, Sean Dobie and Rob Sutherland make up the row. Behind them, the pairing, however, of what is Craig Tiddleston, who had a difficult qualifying session, and the GT4 class driver there qualifying in amongst all the TCR class, with Rob Jackson from Simtech Racing lineup P14 alongside Tiddleston on the 7th row. Then on our 8th row, Murray Lucan and Alex Williams line up side by side in the MX5 class, with Murray Lucan taking pole position in the MX5 class for Symphony Esports Orange by a marginette of 2/10. Congratulations to him. Bevan Thompson and Stephen Hilton line up on our 9th row, and then Cy Anthony and Darren Sharples line up on our 10th and and complete row, completing the top 20 with Ollie Pinley not setting a qualifying time, starting at P21. But as we can see, our classes staying separate from one another. The GT4s haven't already pulled off, and the MX5s waiting patiently will very shortly be getting underway, and all our drivers will be charging on down. But in fact, as we do look to a bit further up the road now, we look to Damien Lobbett here as he gets ready to go racing. Indeed, we get ready to go to the green, ladies and gentlemen, and we wait for the Symphony 180 Sports white driver to take us away. And in fact, as he heads through the final corner, he's gone already as Damien Lobbett. Before we can even take a moment to breathe, it's green flag, and we're racing into turn number 1 as Lobbett here gets a great start, and Adam Holloway is jumped into turn number 1 there as they come charging on down the hill. Jonathan Hitchin moves up a place already. Meanwhile, we can see a Jake Calais battling with El Neal down through turn number 1. They go together, and as they come through the right-hander, where it's going to be side by side all the way in the run to Druids Bend with El Neal on the outside. Jake Calais really pushing hard and fast here and trying to get an early advantage, and I wonder if El Neal's been caught napping a little bit as they make their way down to Graham Hill Bend. Bit of contact between the two of them already. El Neal coming back into Graham Hill and getting the return move done, and meanwhile, whilst they charge their way up towards 30s, we look to the MX5 class here, and Murray Luca with a good start, holding off Alex Williams and Bevan Thompson behind, and the MX5's all in line formation. But we look a little bit further back up to the privateer from RD Simsport, Rob Sutherland here, who runs in P4 in the TCR class. And as he makes his way on down, if you're wondering how we can keep track of the classes, we can see on the board on the left-hand side there, the gold sash drivers, in terms of little gold sash against their names on the time town. In the bottom left-hand corner of the screen means they are raced in the GT4 class. If it's the silver sash, like for Rob Sutherland here, their TCR class, and in the bronze, well, they're going to be the MX5s. And speaking of our bronze drivers, here is Cy Anthony right now, the Symphony Esports orange driver from Wales, who continues to try and put some pressure on here. Stephen Hilton, they make the way up into Westfield Bend, but he can't seem to find a way through at the moment. But it's early doors, of course, as I say that. And Stephen Hilton goes round and makes contact with the wall, and Darren Sharples, goodness me, he's got straight on as well, the privateer. 2 MX5s getting it wrong at Westfield, 1 on entry and 1 on exit. But meanwhile, we look back up to our leader here, and Hitchin goes round the outside and lob it into Paddock Hill Bend. That's brave stuff there, and Damien Lobbett, I think, not trying to dig in too deep and go on the offensive too early on for the simple reason, make one mistake early, and it could be curtains to the race in terms of you find yourself a long way down as we make our way onto this second lap. But Jonathan Hitchin now leads the GT4 class, getting a better run out of Clark Curve and going round the outside of Lobbett, and Lobbett there, he perhaps could have dug a little bit deep into Paddock Hill Bend, but I think playing it safe is smart at this point in the race as they make their way into 30s once more. But as they come through the long left-hander here, you can see just a bit further behind Adam Holloway, not falling off either, and we are expecting the Porsche to perhaps be the stronger of the cars here at Brands Hatch for the simple reason, whilst it doesn't have perhaps the straight line speed of its rivals, it has a lot of handling potential. But meanwhile, speaking of potential here, you can see Hitchin going a little bit open doors with regards to Hawthorne's there, because Lobbett was taking a look up the inside, but Damien Lobbett could not convert it into a move and instead has to back off once again. But we're already starting to see a bit of a split in the GT4 class, with the top 4 breaking away, and then P5 is Samuel Hooper here, who continues to give pursuit, albeit I think he's more worried about the fact he's got Alex Holloway and Roxanne Marshall close behind us. Hooper almost loses it coming through the corner, but meanwhile we've got Alex Williams battling with Murray Luca as they make the way out towards Hawthorne's corner in the MX5 class, and Williams right now still stuck behind Luca in the battle for the lead of the class. And further back, Ollie Pimney has found his way past Cy Anthony. As you can see here, they've changed places of P4 on the MX5 class as they make the way into Westfield Bend once again. But the overtakes are coming thick, they're coming fast as our drivers make the way around. Cy Anthony taking a bit of a rally cross line there. He's got a bit wide, but he catches the car before he makes his way into the catch fence, which of course caught the Jota McLaren back in 2021, which ended up in the tree line there. If anybody remembers the Fanatec GT World Championship, we don't want anybody in the trees coming through Dingle Dale ever again as our drivers make the way down towards Clark Curve once more. But as we look to the front of the MX5 class here, you can see Murray Luca drifting his way in, and that is what you have to do. You have to carry so much speed on corner entry and just clear it off the apex, but Luca taking a bit too much speed, and as they make their way down towards turn 1, it's going to be side by side, but Alex Williams on the left of your picture, Luca on the right, as they head into the braking zone here. It's a battle on the brakes, and Alex Williams moves up into the lead of the MX5 class as they make their way onto lap number 3. But already, if you look at the circuit radar on the top right corner of your screen, you can see the gap that's appearing between the GT4s, the TCRs and the MX5s, where the MX5s have really started to fall away by comparison as they make the way on down the hill once again. But meanwhile, whilst they're charging on through Graham Hill Bend, we look to Rob Sutherland, who's found his way briefly past Ian Manners, but Manners is looking for the counter-attack here in the Honda on the inside into Hawthorne's. He can't quite find it as they make their way through the long right, and as they come charging on around Rob Sutherland struggling for a little bit of speed off the corner there as Sean Dobie looks up the inside, trying to go for the move as the Scotsman as he goes all in. Brake disc absolutely glowing red hot on the rear of that Elantra as they make the way on up the hill and behind. Rob Jackson looking at this and I think thinking, okay, can I get involved as well, please? They make the way through Sheen and down into Sterling's once more, but as they come onto the brakes here, Rob Jackson right now can't really find an opportunity to be right on board with the SimTech Racing driver. He's moved 6th in the TCR class, last of our TCRs currently as they make the way down towards Clark Curve once again. Now, as we see our TCR drivers running together here, what's going to be very interesting in this TCR class is the contrast of the potency of each of the cars available. The Hyundai Veloster, which we're riding on board with of Jackson, very strong car all round, but it does not have a particular strength as such. It's a jack of all trades, master of none. The only thing it can say it's very good at is straight line acceleration, but we had to cut that fault off there. Damien Lobbit in the Milka has turned it around in the Milka machine for Symphony Esports White. Has gone the wrong way round, and Surtees there's been a spin. I wonder if there's a bit of contact. Well, we're not going to be able to find out exactly what happened, but what we can tell you is he's dropped all the way from battling for the podium in the GT4 class to P7 in the class. He's ahead of Craig Tillotson still. Craig Tillotson having a difficult start, but looking to try and recover as soon as possible. But Damien Lobbit definitely having a bit of misfortune there as we see Jonathan Hitchin now continues to lead in the GT4s. He runs almost wide. You can see just a small amount of dirt being kicked up by left-hand side tyres going through Sheen. Of course, once you go wide at Sheen, there's no coming back. You have to literally bring the car as straight as possible back to the road surface. But everybody will be absolutely heart in mouth pounding if they put even one tyre beyond the track limits on the exit of Sheen. And the same for what is there coming out of Clark and on towards Paddock Hill Bend they go, because the super easy there when you go beyond those track limits, that grass will take you way off into the distance, but not so for now for our drivers as they continue to charge on around. And when we come back to our TCRs and the train of thought that we're talking about earlier with regards to the fact we had two of the Hyundais, i.e. the Veloster and obviously the Elantra and also the Honda Civic Type R. The Veloster, the jack of all trades car, has got quite strong acceleration in the lower end of its gear range in terms of second, third and fourth. Meanwhile, the Hyundai Elantra is the one lap pace car on paper in terms it is the strongest car over one lap, but it has quite horrific tyre degradation, particularly when the track surface is quite warm and it's pushed quite hard. And meanwhile, the Honda Civic Type R is at the opposite end of that spectrum in terms it's perhaps the strongest on its tyre wears, but in return it does have the trade-off of not having straight line speed or straight line acceleration beyond fourth gear, and it is the handling car, the Honda Civic Type R. And given this a handling circuit, we would suspect the Hondas are going to perform quite strongly here, but there's nothing to stop an Elantra driver trying to pull out a significant lead and then breaking off into the distance before the tyre degradation catches up with them. And that's exactly what class leader El Neil's doing right now, as we see El Neil here already 4.3 seconds clear at Jay Calais as he makes his way up towards Hawthorne's Bend. But as he comes charging up the hill, we do look from our TCR class to our MX5s. Of course, all equal machinery here as we see Bevan Thompson making their way through Druids. And as they come on through the hairpin, you can see how close they are to the back of Williams. But the difference is Murray Luke is actually being afforded a little bit of breathing room here as they make the way through the left hand at Graham Hill Bend. In the fact that Luca does have an advantage of 8 tenths of a second. It doesn't sound like much, but you'll take everything you can when you're racing here in the MX5s at Brands Hatch, because at any moment it could swing the other way. And speaking of swing, swinging the other way, does he catch it? Alex Williams does, and that could have been curtains for the number 80 MX5 as he makes his way back onto the asphalt. But the thing for Williams is he's conceded P2 and he's conceded the best part of 2 seconds of ground to Thompson as he makes his way back up to speed, but it could have been far, far worse. And I think he'll be very agreeable to me when he says in that cockpit that it could have been a lot worse. It could have really shattered his race aspirations, as behind Ollie Pimley and also Scianti are going to be looking at this and thinking, okay, he's made one mistake, can we pressure him into another, as they make the way down the hill and up towards Sheen Curve once again. And that's the thing as well, when you're pushing so hard around here, it only takes one minor error and it can go all wrong. And these MX5s, as we said earlier, they slide through the corners. They're not your traditional like your GT4s where it looks very pointed. Instead you have to carry the speed through the corners, as there's a little bit of latency there for a couple of drivers. And well, that was both for Williams and Pimley, and Cy Anthony with an off-track rejoins but almost gets it into a bit of a horror show as he brings his way on down and around. But they all survive the crunch there as they make the way on through. And we look from our MX5s up towards what is our TCR class once again. And we look to what is their P3 in the class, Rob Sutherland, as he makes his way into the right-hander for turn number 5, coming through Hawthorne's Bend, and it looks quite compact there, albeit I thought a brief moment the car was actually sliding loose on the rear. I thought there was a bit of oversteer creeping on in, and of course you may be thinking at this point, well, why would a TCR class machine suffer any oversteer at all through a corner, given the fact these cars are so front-end dominated? Well, simply put, these cars, in order to get them to rotate more on corner entry, our drivers will typically run their brake bias as far towards the rear brakes as possible, so they'll run a low percentage brake bias, and in turn what that does under braking, it lifts the rear of the car up. But we have to suspend that fault because Jonathan Hitchin, he's into the tyre barrier there. That's coming down to Grand Hill Bend. The car's gone round, and look at the front right tyre, the suspension has buckled, and Hitch is trying to get the car back around in order to potentially get it to the pits, but I think that's going to be a jump to the pits. That car is not going anywhere, and that is a disaster for Jonathan Hitchin. And that means he's going to lose a lap on the field by default as he's towed to the pits and has to repair the car. As we do see here, Ian Manners going on the offensive versus Sutherland. Sutherland right now staying on strong, and just to finish off our point, with the brake bias being towards the rear, what that means is our drivers brake the way into the corners. The rear brakes do more work, and it causes the rear of the car to start to lift or slide into the corner where that rear comes around when the brakes are released, and in turn that gives the driver extra rotation. The downside of that approach, however, is it makes the car less stable on corner entry, and therefore you start to have to worry about overlaying a little bit of throttle as soon as you come off the brakes in order to settle the rear down. But it's compromised, of course, and by putting the car on edge, you can gain lap time, but you've also got to be wary of the risks that can come with it. And right now, I think for both Sutherland and Manners, they're aware of those risks and they're trying to charge on as much as humanly possible. But as they come through Hawthorne's and down to Westfield Bend this time, Manners takes a look up the inside, but he's not close enough there in the 52 Civic Type R as he makes his way on down the hill and now through Dingledale and up into Sheen, but staying close. As meanwhile, speaking of close, here it's Sharples versus Hilton. Sharples on the inside, it's Paddock Hill Bend in the battle of the MX5s for P6 in class. Goes a little bit deep, however, now you can see the GT4s are closing up behind, and Hilton's going to look for the return move, and Roxanne Marshall is to literally park the car behind with Damien Lobbit taking a look up the inside as they make their way through, and Damien Lobbit capitalises. I think Marshall there decides to get out of the firing line as they make their way down the hill, and Lobbit cuts his way between the two. As you can see, Hilton's made to go a little bit deep. Roxanne Marshall has to dab the brakes on there as Sharples tries to make the move, thinks better of it as they make the way now in to Surtees Bend, and we ride on board here with Sharples, who looks up the inside. They gets a much better entry line, but of course he's compromised on corner exit there with a tighter exit line by comparison. He can only put so much power down with it being a descending radius corner at Surtees, and as he makes his way up towards Hawthorne's here, Sharples right now really getting his teeth between the bit in terms of going on the offensive as he makes his way into the right-hander. Both drivers here really pushing on as much as they can, but it's literally the difference of 3/10 right now as they come down to Westfield. Now coming on through the corner, you can briefly hear in the background the screeching of the tyres as they make the way from corner to corner. That goes to show you just how hard they're pushing one another as he comes through the right-hander of Sheen Kirby, and you can see Hilton not as comfortable taking the speed through Sheen by comparison, and Sharples all over the back of him here in the latter half of the lap. But the problem is he's close enough to be able to reach out and look for the move, but he's not close enough to be able to get the move done as they make the way up into Clark Curve. Now what Sharples really needs to look at here is getting a better corner exit out of some of those late corners, and therefore not find himself concertinaed up behind Hilton, because as soon as they come through Clark, Hilton gets a good run, and you can see the difference here. Also, we do have the GT4 at Tillotson coming on through, but beside the point there, as they both show respect for the GT4 making its way on through, Sharples right now just needs to find those corner exits a little bit more, give himself some breathing room, because I think if he's able to get the proper launch out of a lot of these corners, he may just have the run on Hilton going to the next corner, particularly once they've made the way out of Hawthorne's. But we'll keep our eyes on that as they make the way down through Druids and up into Graham Hill Bend. Meanwhile, looking back to our TCRs here, Rob Sutherland still holding off Ian Manners and still trying to chase down Jay Colley as they make the way into Druids themselves. And of course, we are about to start to see the overlap between the TCRs and the MX5s. We've already seen it for the GT4s that are on their 9th lap and coming to the end of it, as led by Adam Holloway, who's currently going through Sheen Curve by comparison. The TCRs, meanwhile, being led by El Neil, are just going through Surtees on lap number 9, and the MX5s now a lap down on lap number 8, being led by none other than Murray Luca, who's currently making his way through Sheen. And speaking of Murray Luca, well, Roxanne Marshall there losing out a little bit as they make the way through what is Dingledale and up towards the left-hander of Sterling's, and it's going to be the battle of the GT4s literally sandwiching their way on around what is there, the MX5 of there, I believe, of Cy Anthony as they come on through. Clark Kerr and Damien Obbett there taking no prisoners. And, well, of course, we do have Jonathan Hitchin, who's down in P8, last of our GT4 runners right now, a lap down on the class, with that instant coming out of Druids down to Graham Hill Bend and having to jump to the pits. But it is all kicking off around the field once again, with Alex Williams here battling side by side with Thompson. That's Bevan Thompson on the inside here. Onto the brakes they go. Will it be the strength of Iron Brew that keeps Williams ahead, or will it be the speed of Thompson that keeps him ahead coming down the hill? Well, it's going to be Thompson who gets the better run out of Druids as they make the way in to Graham Hill Bend. And coming through the left-hander here, you can see Williams all over the back of his rival, but he can't quite find it at the moment. He thinks about taking a peek to the inside into Surtees Bend, but I think he might have looked at his rearview mirrors and seen that he's got a whole rostrum of GT4s making their way up behind. And that's going to only compromise their run as they make the way up towards Hawthorns. As you can see, the MX5s, they're hooking onto the inside of the road compared to GT4s who go round the outside. Of course, the mantra for this multi-class racing is the faster class has to take the initiative and find its way safely through. The slower class cars are expected to hold their lines, of course, show awareness of the other classes coming through, but they're not expected just to simply pull out the way and slam on the brakes to stay clear as our drivers continue to press on here. And that's what makes multi-class so challenging, in the fact that you have that difficulty as our cameraman there decides to get a good look at the foliage as they track Murray Luca beyond that Dingledale and up into Stirling. So you can see the battle for P2 not too far behind Murray Luca. In fact, Luca has gradually opened up that gap to about 2.5 seconds, all withstanding as Alex Williams continues to try and harass the back of Bevan Thompson. Meanwhile, speaking of harassment here, well, here is your race lead in the GT4 class of what is Adam Holloway, and the Porsche driver leading for the first time today, and the BPR Esports driver under pressure from Sam Gunstone. Of course, these two no strangers to battling one another. You remember at Daytona they saw plenty of battle in action in amongst one another, and right now, well, Holloway in the Porsche, which, as we said earlier, does seem to be the favourite here in terms of its handling capabilities for the Brands Hatch circuit, but the BMW M4 behind it, it may look like a bit of a box by comparison with the Porsche in terms of not quite having the sleek lines and the larger front grille, but at the same time, the one thing the BMW M4 does have going for it is great stability and also a great all-round platform to work with, and Gunstone really showing that strength as he makes his way for the right-hander there of Hawthorns. And I wonder if he's also powered by the energy drink known as Mountain Dew. Personally, not one I enjoy drinking, but still perhaps he's trying to raise himself to new heights in terms of battling today as he makes his way up through at Sheen. But as he comes through the right hand here, of course, this is where the GT4s will start to feel a little bit of the loss of downforce on the car. Whilst they don't have too many aerodynamic refinements, that rear wing does account for something on the car in terms of keeping that rear planted when the car's got quite high ride height on the rear as well, and they will raise that rear ride height in order to help the car's rotation. And well, the higher you have that rear raised, the more effect that is created by the rear wing as you build up speed on the car. But of course, in the dirty air of the car in front, that can destabilise a little bit of the aerodynamic balance over the front end of the car and make the car prone to a bit of understeer through corner. And Gunstone right now not really close enough to go for a move here, sitting within 4 to 5 temps. And as he makes his way up the hill this time, I think Gunstone right now may be thinking more about strategy here and recognising that they do have an 11-second gap, if not almost 12 seconds now, over third place driver Samuel Hooper, who makes his way up the hill in the Cayman 718. And as he comes into the right-hander of Druids, Hooper right now in a bit of a no man's land. And in fact, for Hooper, he's got some pressure coming behind, because that is Alex Holloway, the red Aston Martin you see chasing after him. And, well, in the Doritos Aston Martin here, as he comes roaring on through the left-hander, will he take a dip for P3, or will he decide to throw in his chips and wait for that pit stop opportunity? Well, he's got plenty of time to go at the moment in terms of this race before those first pit stops coming. We do expect our GT4s to run for at least the best part of about 45 to 60 minutes, somewhere in that region, before they consider the pit stop. The tyres on these cars do last a whole hour typically, and they can be pushed to be a little bit more. Meanwhile, our TCRs, by comparison, as we do look to Ian Manners, who right now sits ahead of Jake Calais. And in fact, Jake Calais has had an off-track only moments ago, which we have missed, but that's why Jake Calais has dropped from P2 in class down to P4 behind Ian Manners and Rob Sutherland. Manners now P3 at Sutherland P2. The TCRs can go the full duration almost on those front tyres, about 80 minutes before they need to take the stop. Meanwhile, those rear tyres will just go on forever. They can go for approximately about 150 minutes, given the fact that the rear tyres are doing a lot less work compared to the fronts. But still, we'll have to wait and see what our drivers' preferences are as they make the way on down the round. And the MX5s, by comparison, we are expecting to pit stop around the hour mark, and I think fuel will be more of their constraining factor, as well as a bit of tyre life taking into consideration as well. But as we see, our drivers making the way on through into Westfield Bend. The 3 TCRs there at Sutherland, Manners and Calais, going in amongst. And that's Cy Anthony, who right now finds himself in amongst. He's a bit of the cat amongst the pigeons as they come roaring through the right-hander of that Sheen and heading down towards what is Sterling's once again. Things have settled down for a brief moment now, and our drivers are being given that opportunity to start focusing a little bit more on their strategy. But what you can see here, interestingly enough, is the fact as well that with Jay Calais losing out in that P2 and dropping back to P4, I think his tone for this race now has started to take a bit more of an aggressive stance. He's looking quite comfortable in P2 only moments ago, but that one mistake has definitely seen him fall away, and El Neil by comparison now has an 11-second advantage over this trio behind him. Of course, El Neil, the TCR leader, as they make the way into Paddock Hill Bend for what for the TCR class is the 13th time of asking. But I wonder here whether Clay's going to try and go back on the offensive, where Manners and Sutherland are starting to think about protecting the car a little bit more. But I can tell you right now, whilst they may be having the opportunity to protect the car, the one driver who has not got that opportunity is Adam Holloway, as he's being continuously hounded by Sam Gunstone. And as Gunstone follows him on through the final corner, we ride on board here with the BMW Motorsport Sim Racing Machine driver as he makes his way down towards turn number 1. Now charging on through here, heading into the braking zone and setting a personal best of 29.569 that time around, taking 3 tenths almost out of Holloway. You would argue that Gunstone is looking strong right now, but of course the reverse of the coin is true in the fact he may be looking strong when he's in clear air or not being confounded by dirty air, but as he gets closer and closer, he does seem to hit a little bit of a wall as he rolls his way now into Graham Hill. But coming on out here, again, not quite getting the exit you'd like, and that's the difference of the two cars here, with the BMW being front engine rear wheel drive, meanwhile the Porsche being mid engine rear wheel drive. You can see how the Porsche getting the better corner exit by comparison, simply because it has more rotation naturally in the car. Meanwhile the BMW being a bit more of a beast to rotate through the corner. But as we make our way onto these long acceleration zones, i.e. the straights, what we see is then the BMW starts to catch up quite significantly, where it's got a bit of straight line speed advantage plus the draft of the Porsche. But the Porsche right now open up a nice gap as we go into the more technically focused segment of the lap, and there Gunstone getting a bit wrong and almost seeing the car spear its way off coming through Westfield Bend. He won't want to do that again in a hurry, as in front of him Hilton there almost dipping the rear left tyre onto the grass, and well, Gunstone surviving. We're seeing Hilton get it go almost wrong, in fact Hilton almost surviving, and as they make the way on around right now, we do look back to Damien Lobbett in the GT4 class, who continues to try and find a way past Alex Holloway. We said earlier that Holloway would be under some pressure soon, and he's found it here as they make their way into the braking zone, and Lobbett up the inside into Sterling's, and as they come on out now, Hitchin's going to try and unlap himself here. Remember, Jonathan Hitchin is a lap down on these guys as they make their way in at 2 o'clock, and as they come through the right-hander, well, Damien Lobbett at this point I think will be hoping that Hitchin just stays behind him, but I think Hitchin's got other plans here. As you can see, Lobbett covers off the inside line initially. Hitchin's going to go around the outside here as they head into Paddock Hill Bend. Well, they're sort of battling for lap position, you could argue, albeit Jonathan Hitchin has to find a way on through and then clear off as soon as possible, because otherwise the blue flags will wave. As we see Darren Sharples in front of the MX5 staying well clear as they go into the braking zone here. The MX5 out on the outside, the GT4's on the inside as they make the way on down the hill and into Graham Hill Bend once again. Meanwhile, Roxanne Marshall's coming to the pit. I believe there may be some damage for the car for Roxanne Marshall, but they've decided to make the way on in, and as we do look to the pit lane here, cars up on the jacks already, so I think there might be a desire to change the tyres here, as in fact Marshall, I think, will disappear now, and I wonder if that is an early retirement. Perhaps there's a technical issue with the car for Marshall, which is very unfortunate to have to retire so early into the race. Of course, it does happen when it goes wrong, and it's frustrating, but at the same time, still, we wish all the best to Marshall, and I hope they're able to join us for the next multi-class endurance event hosted by UKSimRacing. That is our first retirement of today at GT4 falling, and we still have 20 drivers racing on around the circuit with just under 70 minutes to go. But as time presses on here, and Damien Lobbett right now tries to press on and keep Jonathan Hitchin lapped down, and behind him, you can see just in front Samuel Hooper now having the adverse situation of running P3 in the GT4 class. He's got P4 closing up very rapidly, a P4 driver who I think reckons he's got the pace to win the race today. But for Hooper, it's all about trying to hold track position. Will Hooper fight, or will he decide just to let it go and focus on lap time by comparison? Well, only Hooper can tell as they make their way down through Paddock Hill Bend once again, right on board the gearbox here of the UKSimRacing driver, as they make their way uphill into the braking zone, where you can see Damien Lobbett inches closer and closer with every corner turn and every braking zone made as they come down the hill and into turn number 3. Run on through the left-hander here. Hooper not quite able to make the apex curve by comparison, but still carrying the speed out of the corner. And again, the Porsche really showing its cornering capabilities as they come into Surtees, and this is where Hooper can just simply feel more comfortable in the car, albeit goes a little bit deep. Then you'll notice the Lobbit actually taking quite an early apex by comparison to mitigate the dirty air coming for Hooper's car, and as they make the way down in towards Hawthorne's here, it's going to be Lobbit on the inside, Hooper on the outside. Under the brakes they go, and Hooper there tries to hold it all the way round, but Lobbit carrying the speed here as they make their way past the Marshall's post and up into Westfield. It's going to be side by side into the right-hander. Hitchin comes on through here and tries to make it 3 wide, and as they come down, Jonathan Hitchin picks his way past the two of them on the inside, and well, Damien Lawrence moved up into P3, but in return, when he's done, he's unleashed the beast of Jonathan Hitchin to move further up onto what is almost the lead lap. He's only got 2 more drives to close on down and unlap himself beyond, but he's got a long way to them in the fact he has got a margin of what is approximately, I believe, at 17 seconds to go after Gunstone and Holloway, who right now battling for the lead of this race. And after that, he's got to do it all again, albeit this time round, when he does it, it will be for track position, not for lap position, as they make the way into turn number 1. As they come charging on down here, Hooper, of course, making a great defence on the outside of what was Hawthorne's coming into Westfield Bend and really making it as difficult as possible for Lobbit to go for the move. But in the end, the two of them side by side coming out of what was Westfield, it gave the opportunity to Hitchin to come on through on the inside. A very smart piece of driving there from Jonathan Hitchin, and I think he'll be very pleased with that. But speaking of being pleased, we do look up to Adam Holloway here. I think we'll be pleased as punch that he seems to have found a bit of method and rhythm in the madness in order to be able to keep the BPR Esports Porsche over a half a second ahead of Sam Gunstone in the BMW M4 as they make the way through Westfield once more. Now coming on charging down the hill at this point, Hooper making his way on past Damien Lobbit, and well, we're only catching the tail end of that, but I believe Damien Lobbit having an off track in the run to Pilgrim's Drop, and Hooper once again ahead, albeit for how long will be the question as we ride on board here with the Symphony Esports white driver as he comes on down, and well, Lobbit there thinking about it, Hooper covers him off, and as they come through Sheen, you can see Hooper then literally having to try and take all the speed out of Lobbit in order to keep himself safe into Sterling's. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been surprised if Lobbit there tried to dive it on the inside, and as they make the way up towards Clark Curve, it just goes to show you how much pace Lobbit has. As you can see, Hooper puts the car in the middle of the road. Lobbit has to just back out there in time as they come through the right-hander and make the way onto another lap. Now this is where the Aston Martin can unleash the beast as they make the way up towards turn number 1. Will he be able to find the move into the right-hander? Lifting off there, lift and coast into turn 1. He knows the opportunity's not there, but where it will be if he gets a really good run coming up the hill, and he does indeed, and Hooper can't cover this off. He's gone too deep as they make their way through a bit of contact between them, and Lobbit there has to back out, and he will not be pleased with that as they make the way out of Druid's Bend. He would argue he was close to the apex. Hooper would argue, well, got turned in at some point. That's one for the stewards, not for us at the commentary booth, as they make the way on down and around once more. But right now, Damien Lobbit trying to pick his way on past, but I think frustration building. Meanwhile, having just set the fastest lap in the GT4 class, where it's the driver who unlapped himself from a couple of his peers only moments ago. Jonathan Hitchin right now, fastest lap in class at 29.28 on that last lap. And to give you a relative comparison, that is 2/10 faster than the previous best fastest lap set by Adam Holloway, set about 6 laps ago. So right now, Jonathan Hitchin really going on a crusade here to get himself back onto that lead lap. Can he do it is the question. Well, I think right now the bigger question is, yes, he can do it, but how much is he going to take out of the car, and how on edge is he going to put himself in terms of potential mistakes? And Jonathan Hitchin does not normally make mistakes, but when he does get it wrong, it can be quite spectacular. And that's not a celebration, but that goes to show you how hard and dedicated to his craft he is in terms of trying to find every little inch of lap time, if you will, like an Ayrton Senna in the GT4 class here today, in absolutely flying and trying to strip lap time left, right and centre. But as he makes his way up towards turn number 1, once again we look to the MX5 battle here for the lead of the MX5 class of Alex Williams versus Murray Luca. Williams being the fast charger on the rise, Luca the leader as they make the way into Druids here, drifting the way on through, and Murray Luca they're not feeling very comfortable with the car beyond the apex curve of Druids. You can see it straight lined out to the corner. Meanwhile, Williams practically sideways through the corner, and I think right now both drivers here on the metal as they make the way up towards Surtees, but Murray Luca definitely feeling some pressure as they come into turn number 4. And coming on through here, he'll be hoping, I think, that he can get Hitchin between the two of them, but Hitchin's going to clear the pair of them before they get into Pilgrim's Drop by any means as they make the way on down the straight, heading all the way down now towards turn number 5. And as they go into the rise here, well, the Symphony Esports orange driver feeling the pressure. And keep in mind as well that Bevan Thompson is only 8 seconds back from this, so they continue to fight one another and fight one another hard. Well, we could start to see the battle really condense into a battle of 3 or 4-way battle with Bevan Thompson and Ollie Pimley close behind, a 4-way battle for the lead of the class. But meanwhile, as they make the way through here, well, Samuel Hooper right now has 2 X5s to deal with, plus also Damien Lovett behind, and Damien Lovett's going to look up the inside as Hooper plays it conservatively, but you can see Lovett there backs out for the simple reason he doesn't what he turned into as they make the way in towards Clark Curve. The MX5s on the outside, and they're going to come together here into Clark Curve. Luke holds the outside, and meanwhile, it's going to cost a lot of time to Alex Williams here as he finds he has to back off and he has to let go. Just going on past it, that's Holloway. Alex Holloway in the Aston Martin, the red Doritos machine, as they make the way on towards turn number 1 once again. But the GT4s all coming through versus the MX5s in quick succession. That goes to show you how it is an art and a craft in terms of multi-class racing, because you have to battle your own class, but also you have to pick the right time to pick your way between classes, or if you're the slower class, you have to pick the right time to back out of it and say no, as they make the way down to Graham Hill Bend here. And right now, Williams definitely started to take strides into his game with regards to attacking Murray Luca, but Murray Luca right now seemingly just finding enough in the tank to hold on as they make the way into 30s once more. Meanwhile, Hooper here battling for P3 in the GT4 class, and this time Damien Lloyd's going to be made to go around the outside. I think he'll have the confidence here. Has he got enough in the car? Going for the right hand, he's going to be battling against the car that can carry the speed through the corner. He looks at the cut back there, a nice move and almost touching the rear, but just not. And in the end, as he cuts back to the inside, Damien Lovett up the inside into Westfield Bend, takes P3 back once again in a lovely double corner move. And the Symphony Esports white driver right now showing why he's got the credentials to be on the podium in the GT4 class. So they make the way into Sterling's Bend, but in all of this, you can see Lucas closed up from P5. It's Alex Holloway here, the privateer in the 93 Aston Martin, who right now tries to chase after Samuel Hooper. They've got plenty of time to go as we hit the 30-minute mark. We've still got an hour of racing left, plus at least 1 set of pit stops for every driver. And as they make the way onto the start-finish straight here, well, these GT4 drivers right now battling as if it's the end of the race, and you love to see it as they make the way onto another lap. Coming charging on through, we look back to Murray Luca versus Alex Williams here as they make the way onto another lap. But albeit it may not be as fast, but it's still as intense as Williams looks up the inside, Luca on the outside here, and the Iron Brew machine's going to come on through, but can he hook it to the apex? He does go a little bit deep and just about gets it stopped in time. Luca has the speed here. Can he look throughout the inside? He thinks about it, but then backs out as they come roaring on through the right-hander of Druids, and down the hill they drop once again. But Williams there, nice move for the lead of the class. I think Murray Luca is well mindful of the fact this race is not won in the opening 31 minutes. It's won when you cross that checker flag in the lead position. And right now, I think Murray Luca is enjoying the battling, but at the same time, playing the long game here, which is to get Williams to have to work the car and then put Williams under pressure when he's the pursuer. But as they make the way up the hill now and down in towards Pilgrim's Drop shortly, you can see already Williams has pulled a couple of attempts out, but these MX5s in the tail of one another do pick up quite a significant amount of speed, and that will mean that Luca is going to close up by a couple of attempts. They head into Hawthorns, and you can see there the two drivers taking different apexes, with Williams taking a later apex, in fact carrying more speed off the corner compared to Luca, and that is all about trying to mitigate the dirty air for Luca as he goes into an earlier apex in order to point the nose of the car into the corner comfortably as they make the way out the hill and into Sheen Curve. But as they come through there, you can see both drivers taking different amounts of speed, and the key theme is that Alex Williams is seemingly breaking away a little bit as he now sits 7 tenths clear. And I think at this point of the race, Murray Luca may be playing a bit of the long game, or perhaps Alex Williams just simply has been able to step it up a notch and break his way away as they come roaring on down through the right-hander of turn number 9 and onto another lap for them. Meanwhile, let's not forget about the TCR class here, and here's your TCR leader of El Neil from Impulse Racing, currently 18 seconds clear. And well, to put you in the frame of mind how quickly he's going right now, he is lapping on average a whole second faster than his class contemporaries on average. Well, the closest driver in terms of pace is Ian Manners, who on that last lap was 8 tenths of a second off. But El Neil right now just in a world of his own. meanwhile, not in a world of his own, Rob Sutherland here, P2 at the moment. He'll know that El Neil's off in the distance, but what he'll appreciate is not off in the distance, but burgeoning and close behind him is Ian Manners' Civic Type R that's right there in the rear of the picture as they make their way into turn number 1. Once again, onto the anchors they go, and Rob Sutherland right now under a bit of pressure here, and of course these two have been close together for some time. Meanwhile, Jake Calais, by comparison, who was battling with them, has fallen backwards. 6 seconds off after a couple of off tracks have cost him dearly. And I wonder if for Jay Clay he's thinking about the long term here and now starting to tame it down a little bit and think about going hunting later on in the racing strategy. As meanwhile, they come roaring on through here. Jonathan Hitchin picks his way past Robert Jackson, but he's still got a long way to go, of course, the GT4 class driver, in getting himself back onto the lead lap of the GT4s. And his next target, should he wish to unlap himself, is P2 driver Sam Gunstone, who is 1.5 seconds off of Holloway. Adam Holloway, that is. Of course, there have been 2 members of the Holloway family racing here today. And right now, Jonathan Hitchin has got a long way to go to get himself back onto the lead lap. Can he do it? Well, as I said earlier, I think he can, but it's going to take quite a bit of groundwork as he makes his way through Surtees Bend. But meanwhile, we look him right on board the gearbox of Rob Sutherland, the privateer in the Elantra, the RD Sport Elantra, I should say, as he makes his way up into the left-hander of Surtees. And what's starting to become a little bit clearer here, and I wonder if Sutherland's pushed it a bit too hard earlier on, is that Manners is closing little by little as they pick their way through the MX5 pack. That is Anthony, who they're going to be chased after shortly, but Pimley they've just passed as they come through and as they make their way all the way up towards turn at number 1. And once again, right now, Ollie Pimley in the MX5 will try to get a bit of a distance over there as they make their way into turn number 1 just to help him on the straights as they come roaring on down, but soon that toe will disappear into the ether as they make their way on up the hill now, and the TCRs will run away off into the distance. But as they come through the right-hander here, we look back up to race leader overall and in the GT4 class for Adam Holloway, who on that last lap lost 1.1 seconds to Sam Gunstone. Well, I wonder if there was a little bit of traffic that cost Holloway, or it's just a mistake. We haven't had an off-track be registered on our automated system. So now Adam Holloway, with all that advantage he's been gradually incrementing out, it has been brought back very suddenly and sharply, and now he's got it all to do again as they come through the left-hander of Surtees. And for Gunstone, well, we don't know whether Gunstone's just playing it calm at the moment and deciding to play the long game here in terms of strategy and not pushing the car too hard to save a bit of fuel and perhaps a shorter pit stop by comparison. But either way you cut it, Sam Gunstone definitely looks as though he's quite in control of this P2 position and is playing the mind games here in terms of staying close, but not close enough to really be putting the pressure on in terms of trying to go for the move. But the pressure's definitely on in terms of Holloway needing to get away as they make the way through Dingledale and up into Sheen here. You can see having thread the needle behind what was Pimley and Kool-Aid, they now have to go toe-to-toe once more here as they come through Sterling's. But the thing stays the same, the fact that 4 attempts separates the two of them as they make their way up into the Clark Curve. As they head out through the right-hand braking zone here, we look to Murray Luca, who, after falling back a little bit off of what is there, Alex Williams in the MX5 class lead. Well, Williams right now, after gradually starting to break away, seems to have a bit of misstep recently and has fallen back into the clutches of Murray Luca. The gap between them half a second. And I think for Murray Luca, again, this is where it all comes down to that mental fortitude of, do you push hard now or do you wait until the pit stops and then go for gold in terms of trying to make those moves early on? And only the driver can know that, of course, but they've got to think about it in terms of, do they make the overtake on circuit or do they make it based on strategy and potentially save themselves having to battle their way through hard, lose time, and also lose life in the tyre and lose life in the car? Because, of course, every time you battle, you're going to be taking more out the tyre, you'll be taking more out the brakes, and also you'll typically be using more fuel because you'll try and use the full RPM bands of the car or the rev range of each and every gear. And as they make their way through the right-hander of Westfield and down into Dingledale, we can see here the two of them literally nose to tail as they head through Sheen Curve. Murray, look at they're taking a lot of apex by comparison. He's got to be careful for treading over that apex too high. If he does so, that we consider to be an off track, and if he cuts it too much, he may end up with a slowdown there, and that's the last thing you want because the iRacing automated slowdown system, very aggressive, and it can really cost you a lot of time. A 1.5 second slowdown can feel like an eternity, and it will be when you lose about 2 to 2.5 seconds because, of course, in the MX5s, these cars do not pick up speed quickly. They lose speed very rapidly indeed on the slowdown, But meanwhile, speaking of one driver who cannot afford to slow down, P2 in the TCR class, Rob Sutherland here, as he makes his way onto another lap, and he's having to cover off the inside from Ian Manners, who's trying to go on the offensive on the outside. Manners cuts back to the inside. They're trying to sell the dummy as they make the way into Paddock Hill bend, and he sells it quite nicely because Sutherland there outbrakes himself, drifts the car through. He comes off the inside, but Manners up the inside now as they come on into the right hand of Druids. It's going to be side by side all the way down the hill now into towards Grand Hill bend. I think Sutherland has cost himself dear, or has he? As Manners there finds that Sutherland comes in hot on the brakes on the inside from Graham Hill. They're still side by side on battling, albeit as they now make the way towards Surtees. They've got the conundrum of the GT4 pack behind them as they come through the left hand, and you can see Sutherland in the inside. Manners gets the throttle down on the outside. They're still too wide, but now race leader in the GT4 class. Holloway's trying to pick his way on through, and now he can't find a way on through with the GT4s. Well, he's got a door. Is he going to look up the middle? Surely not. No, he decides not to. As you can see, Manners on the inside through Hawthorne, and now as they come on through, Ian Manners makes it stick for the time being, but Sutherland's coming on back here, and look at Holloway. He's got nowhere to go as Sutherland dares to dream up the inside, and as they come on through, now they can finally sell their differences. Holloway's had enough. He comes on up the inside here into Sheen. Sutherland has to back off as a result, and now Manners is going to have to return move. Can he find it? No, he can't, as Sutherland covers him off there, but that could have been close to curtains and tears for all four drivers, but then they all safely made it. But what brilliant patience being shown by both Holloway and Gunstone as Gunstone looks up the inside at Manners, and Manners there, I think, respecting the fact that they've played it a little bit hard versus the GT4s, and now they're going to calm it down a little bit. But Ian Manners as well showing to Sutherland, and Sutherland showing in return. They're not afraid to go side by side, and what brilliant racing action between the two TCR drivers. They may not be battling for the lead of the class right now, but it feels like they're battling for a win in their own minds as they make the way up towards turn number 2. There's pride on the line here in that battle for P2 in the TCR class, and it's showing as they make the way down the hill in towards Graham Hill bend. But with Ian Manners now 6 tenths back here, and Rob Sutherland really going on the offensive, I don't think it's a question of if, it's more of a question of when will Manners catch back up again, because he's already starting to strip time out as they head into Surtees. And the problem for Sutherland is he has pushed the car a little bit harder in trying to come back for that P2. To be fair, brilliant battling, that's what you love to see. But I wonder right now if Sutherland's thinking he's perhaps shortchanged himself a little bit in terms of the front tyres on that Elantra starting to feel a little bit more wear on them as they cut their way in between the leaders of the MX5 class. They've just gone past Murray Luca, and shortly will be closing up to the back of Williams there and coming on through. With 40 minutes complete and still plenty of time to go. Of course, we'll have to wait to see whether this does factor into the pit stops that will eventually occur as we look to our GT4 class leader here of Adam Holloway as they make the way into Stirling's Bend. You can see Gunstone close behind as they make the way up towards Clark Corner. But in the long charge here, you can see how Gunstone being close, he's not close enough to look for the move. Gunstone now starting to up the tempo a little bit. And I think Gunstone, after being caught up behind for some time, may now be trying to get the message through, which is, look, I've played the patience game, I've stayed behind you, but now I'm coming for the lead. And Holloway there covering off the inside and only bucking the car over to the outside line at the last moment there. I think very worried that Gunstone is pushing now as they come and passing up the hill. Into Druids they go, and you can see how Gunstone really now starting to up the tempo. He sees there's an opportunity here to go for the move. Will he be able to find it? We won't go into Graham Hill Bend. Graham Hill Bend offering overtaking opportunities typically in the slower class cars, but not in the faster class machinery. And as they come up into Surtees, Gunstone all over the back of Holloway as they make the way through the long left-hander that never ends, and now heading in towards the run to Hawthorne's corner as we ride on board again with Sam Gunstone here in the charge. Now coming on and up the rise in towards Hawthorne's. The question will be, can he maintain this proximity all the way through? We can see there, in fact, Holloway gets it slightly wrong coming through Hawthorne's corner of the car, drifting a little bit, a bit of understeer creeping onto the Porsche, a bit more understeer there as Gunstone has to back off for a brief moment. We've got Ollie Pimley into the pits. He's had to jump to the pits for an off track. I think there may have been a bit of contact with the wall and damage to the car, which means they've had to tow it. But meanwhile, Gunstone here, as we focus on the battle of the GT4 class lead, really putting that pressure onto Holloway. But the thing is, if Holloway's given the opportunity to breathe, he'll take it and settle down quite rapidly. But understeer does seem to be creeping in a little bit on those front tyres. That Porsche, they make the way around, and I wonder if Holloway is just pushing it a little bit too hard in order to keep Gunstone at bay. Gunstone, by comparison, does not seem to be having any difficulty in getting the car to rotate into the corner as they come into Paddock Hill Bend here. But both drivers staying as they are as they roll the way down and up the rise. but staying within 3 tenths. In fact, getting so close under braking here, Sam Gunstone, as they come on down. It's Privateer versus BPR as they make their way in towards Grand Hill Bend. No change at the moment, but it could come at any corner, and I think it's only one tiny error from Holloway that will really open up those opportunities to Gunstone. As they make their way on through, we look back to Ian Manners here, who chasing after Rob Sutherland. Well, I said it was going to be when, not if, in terms of putting another battle on for P2 in the TCR class. And will we have been proven correct as they make the way through 30s and come up the hill, and now in the run towards Hawthorns. And I promise, look how close Ian Manners is, but he has to be this close here in the run on the straight because he doesn't have the straight line speed by comparison in clear air. And you can see that bit of contact between the two of them by looking at the distant camera as they come through the right. Oh, goodness me! And I think there was contact on the rear there for what was Sutherland as he was almost turned. I'm not sure if that was latency contact or actual contact between the two drivers, but either way they've survived it somehow, and Sutherland there with a very big near miss as they make the way into the right-hand machine curve. And as they come up towards Sterling's here, well, Manners will know that's another opportunity that has been foiled with the fact there was a bit of contact by the looks of things. Again, we're not quite sure what exactly happened there, other than the fact we saw Sutherland going sideways, but Jonathan Hitchin coming between the two of them now and essentially unlapping himself from the pair, and will make their way on through. In fact, he's on the same lap as them, I should clarify right now. Hitchin continuing to pick his way on through and chase down the GT4 leaders to unlap himself off of Holloway and Gunstone, but Ian Manners now having to build up that pressure once more on his rivals. They make the way down the hill. Meanwhile, heading on down another hill on circuit, Adam Holloway, the GT4 leader, still holding firm versus Gunstone. And that gap opening up to 4.5 tenths once more, and I wonder if Gunstone has just turned it down slightly once more, having put that pressure on initially and now looking to give himself a bit of breathing room, but also to try and get into the head of Holloway, which is, if you take the throttle for a brief moment, I'm going to be right there with you. And that's the thing as well, when you're the chasing driver, if you can keep this attitude of close or not. Well, we have to cut that fault off for a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, because battling for the lead in the MX5 class, Murray Luca on the left, Alex Williams on the right, and as they come into turn number 3, well, Luca got ahead for a brief moment. They're coming out of Druids into Graham Hill Bend, but now he falls back behind once again, and well, both drivers really pushing one another in terms of lap time, corner after corner, and it's a mistake that separates the two of them from going battling once again. And that's why Murray Lucas right there right now, because Alex Williams having the briefest of off tracks in the run out of Druids Bend. It's cost him dear as they make their way down towards Hawthorns corner, and here behind them comes Sean Dobie. He's going to go up the inside, and that's going to compromise Williams' line in particular into Hawthorns Bend. But can Luca capitalise on this? As I think there's been a bit of a moment between Williams and Dobie, but Dobie in the end has found his way on through. Although I think he had to take 2 wheels to the grass there out of safety. But as they make the way on through at Westfield Bend, you can see now how the TCR machine gradually pulling away, and it becomes more and more noticeable as they make the way through Sterling's. As Williams gets it wrong, he almost loses the car, and he catches it once again. And Alex Williams, he does lose it in the end, and my goodness, I thought he brought it back under control coming out of Sheen Curve, but in the end he's got it wrong, and Alex Williams drops to P2 in the MX5 class, and Murray Luca goes on to take the lead with half the race time still to go. But I don't think it's over yet. I think we could still see Williams come on back as they make the way onto what for them is lap number 28. And we're sorry to announce, ladies and gentlemen, we did have one retirement early in the GT4 class of Roxanne Marshall, and we now do have a second retirement in the MX5 class of what is Ollie Pimley, unfortunately retiring only a lap ago. And of course we did hear about Ollie Pimley having to be a jump to the pits in terms of tow to the pits due to damage on the car, and that damage has proven irreparable as we now look from our MX5 drivers, who right now will be looking to calm things down, and Alex Williams will be looking to repair his charge after the lead of the race. Well, we'll be looking to our GT4 class leaders here, the closest two battlers on circuit currently of Holloway versus Gunstone, with Holloway leading in the Porsche Cayman 718 as they make the way to the end of what for them is lap number 31. Now, as they go deeper and deeper at this point, now we're in the second half of the race, this is where the mental fortitude really starts to enact a toll on the driver, because you've made 45 minutes already, you've had to balance your pace, you've had your battles and everything in between. But now, as tyre wear starts to build up, fuel starts to come out the car, that pit stop beckons more and more. You have to start thinking about, okay, the car's behaviour is going to change in terms of a lighter fuel tank, means less weight being carried in the car into the braking zones, therefore you carry more speed on the straights, which means in turn, when you brake into a corner, well, you're going to be having a little bit more speed into that braking, so do you have to brake slightly early, do you brake the same, etc, etc. On top of that, tyre wear starts to build in. Can you turn in as aggressively, can you get the power down as aggressively or so? But indeed, these two right now, gladiators of their class, as they make the way out of their Surtees and down towards Hawthorns once more, and neither one of them showing any mistakes, albeit Gunstone falling back once again. But again, we're not to read too much into this. We have seen Gunstone fall back to almost the second off of Holloway for a couple of laps, and then suddenly spring right back up there to be within 3 to 5 tenths. I think Gunstone continuing to play this game of getting close, getting far, and back close once again, and really trying to make sure that Holloway cannot turn it down up for a brief moment in terms of he's got to be running constantly at 100% in order to be able to keep the advantage over Gunstone. And what does that do to you as a driver when you have to run at 100% all the time? Well, the thing is, there's no means of you running 100% in racing all the time, whether it's in real world motorsport or sim racing. You cannot be driving at your 100% pace throughout, for the simple reason your stamina will find its limit in the end. Albeit I can see one driver right now who doesn't seem to be finding any limit or time of slowing down, and that is El Neil from Impulse Racing, your TCR leader, 30 seconds clear of the rest of his class right now, with P2 driver Rob Sutherland being at the tip of the spear in the pursuit, and just no sign of slowing down as he continues to lead here. But even for El Neil, he will need to manage his stamina in terms of once he gets to a certain point, he'll either turn it down slightly, or alternatively, he's been running at say 80%, he might up it to 85% for a brief roll and then turn it back down once again, because you have to manage your ability to maintain the pace over the course of the race. If it was a sprint race that was only 10 minutes in length, you can probably run at 100% for the entirety of that, given the shortness of the race. But when you're looking at an hour plus, it drains on you. Even if you practice for 6, 12 hours, doesn't matter, you will start to degrade over the course of it, and that's why you have to balance the pace, and you have to run it effectively, stints in the car in terms of you'll have laps where you push to the utmost, you'll have laps where you run a little bit slower to calm the car down, and you'll have the laps in between. And that's what we've been seeing from Ian Manners and Rob Sutherland, where I think Ian Manners has had to take it a little bit down a notch for the last couple of laps, but is now starting to extract more out of the car once again as he goes hunting into Hawthorns Bend. And the simple reason behind that is, of course, we're near missing the battle for P2, only a few laps to go, and now he's got to think about how he can go on the offensive, but this time not get it wrong at the third time of trying, because the first time didn't quite work out. The second time it was a very close call, and now he'll be thinking it is going to be third time's the charm as he continues to make his way in the pursuit, but going a bit slowly there, interestingly enough, through Sheen Curve, not taking anywhere near as much speed through the right-hander. And as Manners decided just to back it off a little bit, perhaps a bit of temerity creeping in with regards to the car, a bit of timidity I should really say, and I think they're just worried about carrying too much speed into the corner as he now makes his way in towards that turn number 1 shortly. And I wonder if Rob Sutherland's going to look at that and think, did he just back out into Sheen Curve, and can I start to push a little bit more? But again, for Manners, it could be all about protecting the tyres, and Sutherland as well be thinking that he's got to do some tyre management as they make their way up into Druids. And speaking of management here and strategy, we'll into the pits for what I think is our first scheduled stop of today. It is Alex Holloway in the 93 at Doritos Aston Martin, the privateer, coming in for the GT4 class. He was in P5 at the time. Up on the jacks he goes, so he's going to have some work done to the tyres of the car, and we'll have to wait and see where that puts him in the field. Where's Craig Tillotson by comparison with the privateer here? We haven't talked too much about since the start of the race, running P6 in class at the moment, with Jonathan Hitchin trying to come up behind him, and Hitchin right now being a sizable margin back of what is 13.5 seconds, but lapping fast. But Tillotson into the pit, so he will not be able to jump ahead of Holloway in terms of track position as he makes his way into the pit lane here. And well, the number 18 driver just gradually creeping his way on through, as meanwhile Holloway making his way out of the pit lane. But Tillotson not even quite the pace of the rest of his peers, but still enjoying the racing all the same, as meanwhile into the pits, and the lead of the GT4 class, it is the GT4's time to pit around what is the 50-minute mark. Adam Holloway comes in from the lead, and Sam Gunstone behind him as Jonathan Hitchin finds his way on past what is Tillotson, who's in the pit lane. Both of them there up on the jacks. It's going to be a battle of the pit stops as we see Damien Lobbett coming through and go one more lap at least. Of course, Damien Lobbett at the time a sizable margin back, but puts in the purple lap, the fastest lap of class and in the race, of a 29.125, and Damien Lobbett right now absolutely flying here, putting in qualifying laps, and he is going at 100%. He knows his pit stop's coming, and he's got to deliver these laps now as he makes his way around. As we hear that Samuel Hooper's into the pits, and I look out my commentary box window and I can see him making his way in towards his pit box very shortly. But as Damien Lobbett makes his way through Surtees corner in the battle between Gunstone and Holloway, it's so close, and Gunstone literally comes out behind as we ride on board here. And you've got Dobie, who you can see the rearview mirror there, literally trying to go around the outside of Gunstone as they make the way up the hill, and as they come into the braking zone here, Dobie having a very near miss in terms of trying to come around the GT4s, but in the end, Gunstone just missing out by the smallest of margins. They're getting side by side on pit exit, and Holloway stays ahead for now, but it's tiny, and that goes to show it is the finest of margins between the two of them, as meanwhile we can see here Jonathan Hitchin all over the back of Holloway. That's Alex Holloway as they make the way through Clark Curve. And Hitchin putting the pressure on here in the battle for P5 in the GT4 class. Finally having the opportunity to go on the offensive here. Makes it out the inside. I think there Holloway not battling it too hard and opting with Hitchin flying in terms of pace to back out and just focus on delivering his race pace. But as they make the way up the hill into the pits comes Damien Lobbit from the lead of the GT4 class. But speaking of battles, we've got Bevan Thompson here battling hard with what is edges in front of Cy Anthony as they make the way up into Druids Bend, and as they come into the right hander, well, Thompson falling back a little bit at the moment, but whilst that's happening, I can tell you that right now Damien Lobbit's still in the pit lane, and here are your effective leaders in the GT4 class as they make the way into the final corner. Where will Lobbit come out in relation to them? That's the question that we need to know the answer to as they make the way to the start finish straight. Lobbit's still being serviced at the moment. I can't imagine he's going to be there for much longer as they make the way across the timeline. So Holloway retakes the lead. That is Adam Holloway retakes the lead of the GT4 class, and overall Sam Gunstone makes his way back into P2, and Damien Lobbit comes on out here, and the gap, well, as they make the way up to speed, coming out of the pit lane exit, the gap stands at approximately 11 seconds. We'll be about 10.5 by the time it levels out at Druids. But the point being, Damien Lobbit has 10.5 seconds to close down and hunt down the two race leaders. And given how much time Holloway and Gunstone are likely to take out one another should they start battling anytime soon, I think if Damien Lobbit can manage the pace that he had on his in-laps and do that on his out-laps here and press on, he's going to take a lot of life out of the car, but in return he will have a huge opportunity to hunt down the potential win, if not a definite place on the podium at the pace he's racing at. As he makes his way down towards Hawthorns, we look back to Bevan Thompson here. We cut away from only a moment ago, and well, we can see here right now Bevan Thompson chasing after Cy Anthony in the hunt for P3 in the MX5 class. Cy Anthony moved up into the position, having gained the most places of our MX5 drivers, 3 having started in P6. And as they make the way into turn number 1, you can see the Symphony Esports orange driver really comfortable in the car as they've gone deeper and deeper into the race. As we're hearing that we've got Jay Colley into the pits on the TCR class, and I think that might be the signal for our first TCR scheduled stop. And Colley P3 in the class, of course, and now he'll be looking to have an absolutely clean pit stop so that way he can get back into the fight in due course. But we've also had Ian Manners take his pit stop, so I believe he will jump back ahead to wait to see how they all intersect across one another. But focusing here on Thompson versus Anthony, as we see that Bevan Thompson going very deep through Surtees corner. I wonder if Bevan Thompson might have a pit stop on the card soon, given he went very deep there into Surtees, and that looked like an unforced error. I think that tyre wear may start to be creeping in to our MX5 drivers, but as he makes his way up to speed through Hawthorns now, we can see Cy Anthony looking very comfortable by comparison as he just tucks in behind Rob Sutherland and lets the TCR give him a bit of a tug along the straights in terms of that slipstream toe. As they make the way out of the right-hander Westfield Bend, we look from them to Ian Manners here, who after making his pit stop early, or in that behind him is Jackson. I believe that's Rob Jackson, who has yet to take his pit stop in the Veloster, the TCR Veloster, and as they make the way into Surtees, William Manners at this point has got to be cautious of the fact that he right now, if he gets passed by Rob Jackson, that is going to cost him time in the race, because Jackson is yet to take that pit stop, and therefore he does not want to lose ground to a driver who is yet to pit. That is not the ideal scenario when you're one of the early stoppers. But Manners, we had his pit stop off camera, we didn't quite catch on our timing data, and as he makes his way into turn number 6 here, Manners right now, he's a far cry from battling with Rob Sutherland. He'll be hoping the strategy brings the pair of them back together towards the end of this race. As he makes his way through the right-hander Sheen curve, we look to Rob Jackson here, in fact right on board with the Simtech Racing Veloster driver as he goes through Sterling's Bend. Going a bit wide there, but carrying a lot more speed out of the corner compared to Manners. In fact, Jackson really flying at this point in the race, it has to be said. Albeit I think it's not long before he's due to peel off into the pit lane. But Jackson definitely enjoying, I think, seeing Manners in front of him. That's giving him a bit of inspiration here to go hunting as they make the way on the start finish straight. Onwards towards lap 37 they go. And as they make the way into Paddock Hill, you can see how Jackson really right now having to do a little bit delicate fighting with the steering wheel to try and stay close but carry the speed, but staying well within 4 attempts. They make their way into the braking zone for Druids Bend, and the SimTech Racing driver, I think, really enjoying the feel of the car now that the fuel's quite light and the tyres, well, they may be a bit warm, but it's not minding him, as we're in the Darren Sharples has had to jump to the pits following an incident on that circuit. He was in P6 in the MX5 class, he remains P6, but he's now in the pit lane and has lost a lap as a result. As we look from Rob Jackson to Adam Holloway here, looking from the battle from towards the rear of the TCR class to our leaders in the GT4 class. And the story continues in terms of Adam Holloway versus Gunstone, but right now the BMW driver behind again within 3 attempts, and the two of them inseparable. But what is very interesting right now is that Damien Lovitt, of course, still trying to get the tyres up to temperature, we believe, but Damien Lovitt not close to the pace of the two leaders here currently, whereby these two on the previous lap doing 30.1s, and on this lap we can see the delta there. Gunstone 29.997, Holloway at 30.212, so he's pulled off 2 attempts. Meanwhile, Damien Lovitt, as he crosses the timeline, we'll get that on the board shortly at 29.9, so Lovitt has got his tyres up to temperature, he's matching the pace of these guys, and that is going to be important now, because if Lovitt can keep that pace up and continue to find clear space on circuit, and Holloway and Gunstone even start remotely battling, that 10-second gap is going to come crashing down like a ton of bricks, in terms that it will not be 10 seconds for very long, and we have got a long way to go in terms of racing. We've got just over 30 minutes, and as the racing continues on here, we look to Jonathan Hitchin, who finds his way past El Neal. He finds his way past the TCR class leader, and Hitchin making that move for overall position, taking P5 in class still, but P5 overall as well, as he makes his way through Paddock Hill Bend and up towards Druids Bend once again. As he comes on through, we look here to the battle for the GT4 lead, and Holloway, as we ride on board the gearbox of the Porsche Cayman driver, under major pressure as they come into Sheen. This is the closest the gap's been for a little bit of time now, as they make the way through the left-hand of Sterling's. Now, of course, they've got nothing left in terms of the strategy here. It's all going to come down to a move on circuit or a mistake that defines the difference between the two of them. But for the BPR eSports driver here as the leader, the one thing he does have as an advantage is that he is the leader. He has that track position in his sleeve, and that means that for Gunstone, he's got to find A, an advantage, B, he's got to maintain the pace of Holloway, and then C, he's got to put it all together to make a move. And of course, overtaking here at Brands Hatch, we've seen it's highly possible. We've seen it in pretty much every corner here today so far, but it's a challenge. You've got to have an overspeed to get it done, or a lap advantage. And as they make the way through Druids Bend, again, you can see, looking for this gearbox perspective, now Holloway able to get the power down sooner in the Porsche by comparison with the BMW M4 Gunstone, but the opposite is true in terms of once they're up to speed, that is where the BMW M4 does start to close up quite aggressively. And it's the contrast of the cars, of course, based on the iRacing and balance of performance implemented here in this series. And as I try to make the way up towards Hawthorns once again in this casual series that runs every couple of months, that our drivers are enjoying this battling indeed. The mixture of cars really making itself shown as they make the way through Hawthorns. Behind them, however, that was P2 driver in the MX5 class of Alex Williams, who after that major moment at Sterling's earlier on, still in P2, and finds himself falling a little bit off of Murray Luca currently. Albeit on that last lap, he did take 1.1 seconds out of Murray Luca, the race leader in class, who does have a number of GT4s making the way up to him, based on what we can see he's on the circuit manager making his way out of Sterling's. Meanwhile, Williams is making his way into Sterling's, and he'll have the added benefit of getting a distant tow off the back of Craig Tillotson there, the P7 GT4 driver, as they make the way in towards turn number 9. As they come on through, we do look from Williams here to Darren Sharples, who I believe has made his way back out onto circuits. They have got the MX5 repaired, and he is a lap down now on the class. So Stephen Hilton has taken a scheduled stop in the MX5 class. He's P5, and I think Hilton's going to be more than clear of Sharples, who's still to make his way through the halfway point of the lap, and he does so as of now. But meanwhile, we look from Sharples to aforementioned driver Stephen Hilton, who falls a lap down on Alex Williams in his own class, albeit Williams and also what is ahead of him of Murray Luke have yet to take their pit stop, so you would imagine that Hilton will by default unlap himself a little bit later on in this race. As they make the way through Graham Hill Bend You can see Damien Lobbett there trying to pick his way past the MX5 drivers, and he knows he's got to go. But speaking of, it's got to go. Here we come for an opportunity for Gunstone on the outside here into Hawthorns. He's going to look round, but he's not going to find it initially, but he'll try and go for cutback as El Nil sets a new fastest lap in the TCR class of 31.802. That's our TCR leader still flying high, but we focus on the GT4 lead battle here as they make the way down the hill through Dingledale and up into Sheen. We thought there might have been an opportunity for Gunstone heading out of Hawthorns into Westfield Bend. Couldn't quite find it, so instead he's going to have to wait again, but he really is gradually squeezing the pressure onto the back of the Holloway's car, and as they make the way up towards what is Clark by Clearways, the gap opens up a little bit more, but again, I think that's more at the choosing of Gunstone and also the nature of the racing rather than Holloway being able to extract a gap here. I think Gunstone has got the pace in hand. He's just got to pick the right time to deploy and make the move count, because of course when they start that fight, Damien Lobbett will be right there and waiting to close up as quickly as possible. And right now Damien Lobbett is only 10 seconds off. He's already taken half a second out of these two in the last couple of laps. As they make the way on down around through Druids, we do look from them to Craig Tillotson here, running P7, the last star runners in the GT4 class currently, as he comes on down the hill. And right now, whilst he's running a little bit of a lonely race by comparison, with a sizable gap between himself and next driver up the road of Alex Holloway, that gap standing in at a margin of what is 43 seconds, still doing everything he can in the livery, which I believe that's a Hatsune Miku livery, or inspired one from the Japanese Vocaloid singer, as he makes his way through up the right-hander, or the right-hand king, should we say, in the run down towards Pilgrim's Drop. As he heads on down here, I think it's a prime opportunity with just shy of 26 minutes left to go to give you a quick recap of the field as it currently stands and what we can expect lying in wait for the remainder of this race. So starting off with our GT4 class, here is your GT4 class leader of Adam Holloway, leading by only 4 tenths of a second, with averaging between 3 to 4 tenths of a second from Sam Gunstone. And the story of these two really has been, whilst they were not the pole sitters, albeit Adam Holloway was on the front row in P2, we did see at the very start both of them not have the strongest of starts by comparison, but when the race leaders were Jonathan Hitchin and also Damien Lobbett got it wrong, these two rose to the occasion and picked up the pieces, and right now we're in this deadlock battle for the win all the way to the end. Adam Holloway in the Cayman does seem to have the handling advantage, but he does not have the pace advantage compared to Sam Gunstone. And Gunstone behind here in the Mountain Dew BMW M4, the 300 car right now absolutely flying and looking for the move. But the difference between the two of them is negligible when it comes down to battling, because every time Gunstone gets close, Holloway is able to use the rear planted nature of that Porsche Cayman in order just to extract a little bit of power out of the corners and keep himself safe. They're ahead of third place man Damien Lobbett, who sits currently 9.9 seconds behind in the Simple Esports white Milka liveried Aston Martin V8 Vantage. And right now Damien Lobbett trying to make amends for losing out at the start in the early stages of this race, dropping all the way down the order and fighting his way back up the order as rapidly as possible. And he is trying to close that gap down to the top two. When if they fight, the gap will come down very rapidly indeed. As meanwhile in P4 here we have Samuel Hoover, who after battling with Damien Lobbett for a sizable amount of time, lost out in the battle for P3, but still running a comfortable P4 at the moment with a sizable gap of what is 15 seconds over Alex Holloway. Alex Holloway, meanwhile, sitting in P5 here in the Doritos Aston Martin, the privateer, not quite having the race perhaps he'd want in terms of being able to battle with others after a couple of good battles towards the very start of the race, but since then has fallen away a little bit and is holding on to P5 currently, with Jonathan Hitchin continuing to try and unlap himself effectively off of the leaders. But the problem for Jonathan Hitchin as he makes his way on around, with I believe Jonathan Hitchin is now back onto lead lap. Yes, he is. We can confirm that. And Jonathan Hitchin, having made 2 pit stops to everybody else's 1 in the GT4 class. An early error coming out of Druids in the run down towards Graham Hill Bend. Saw the car beached on the grass with a collapsed front right suspension, and that's what led to him having to tow. And since then, he has been putting in some very fast laps in the GT4 class and trying to charge his way back into the top 5 fight. But he has a 20-second gap to Alex Holloway in P5 currently, and he is trying to bring it down as soon as possible. Then in P7 in the GT4 class, we have Craig Tillotson here, the last of our GT4 runners who have qualified inside and amongst the TCRs and the beginning of the MX5 grid. Found his way clear of them quite early on in the race proceedings, but since then has not quite been on the pace of his contemporaries, but still running a consistent race in P7 in the class. And we had the 1 retirement of Roxanne Marshall early on in the race, unfortunately, with engine troubles, as we're to find out in the pit lane, and well, the Aston Martin there not being able able to carry on. We lost them about 20 minutes into the race. Coming on to the TCR class then, race leader in the TCR class, currently running P7 overall. And here he is, El Neil at the T16 Impulse Racing Hyundai Elantra, absolutely flying on around as he comes charging through the right-hander to complete another lap, and absolutely infallible right now. Recently taking his pit stop, and there's no signs of him slowing down with almost a 40-second advantage over Craig Tillotson. Not over Craig Tillotson, my apologies, over Robert Sutherland as we check our timing tower there. But meanwhile, we have to cut away from that for a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, because right now the battle for the GT4 class lead is coming back together. Gunstone gets a good run out of Paddock Hill into Druids. He's up the inside, and as they come on through, Adam Holloway there I think caught a little bit shy as they make the way on down around, but Gunstone takes the lead of the GT4 class there, and that was very sudden. But to be fair, it only took one run into Paddock Hill bend and out to give Gunstone the opportunity. I think Holloway just could not see it coming until it came too late. But right now, as we ride on board here with the PPR Esports driver, he is in hot pursuit as they make the way up towards Hawthorns and staying so close here in order to be able to look for a potential move. But the question is now, of course, Holloway proved to be such a difficult nut to crack in the most technical section of the circuit when Gunstone was behind him. Can he prove to be a fast overtaker in making the return move? As he is effectively within Porsche County right now in terms of being able to go for a potential move, but I don't think he's able to carry the speed through Sheen Curve there. Conscious of the fact he doesn't want to make contact with the back of Gunstone's car as they make the way through turn number 8. But heading down towards turn 9, we do have Jonathan Hitchin into the pits for another pit stop. What will be his third and final pit stop of the day, so that's a bit of a surprise that we thought there's only 2 stops for Hitchin, but it seems to have third is on the cards. But right now this battle for the lead has taken a new turn in the fact that your new race leader in the GT4 class and overall is Sam Gunstone in the Mountain Dew Privateer BMW M4, as Adam Holloway in the BPR Esports Cayman 718 Porsche looks to try and come back as soon as possible. But Jonathan Hitchin coming out ahead of them there and now making his way on and around. In fact, we just had our time and data updated to say that Jonathan Hitchin has only made 2 stops. So as a result, I think that's been an error when it said 2 stops earlier on. But regardless, Holloway here staying close as they make the way out of Graham Hill Bend. We continue to take you down through that order, and we talked about our race leader in the TCR class for a brief moment, but it is of course El Neil, who right now is just continuing to extract more and more of a lead with every corner turned. And then we do come to what is Rob Sutherland here as he makes his way out of Paddock Hill Bend and up the hill towards Druids. Running P2 at the moment, was in a close fought battle with Jay Clay and Ian Manners for a sizable portion of the racing, but in the end able to break away with Jay Clay and Ian Manners both having mistakes of their own. And Rob Sutherland right now, despite being under so much pressure and having a couple of near misses, not cracking under the pressure, and we're an advantage of 8.5 seconds over this man of Jay Clay, looking comfortable right now. As right now Jay Clay P3 in the Honda Civic tyre bar, looking strong, chasing after the 2 Hyundai Elantras ahead of him, but in return I think focusing on trying to keep Ian Manners at bay, and where he's got what is an 8-second gap to play with, as Ian Manners meanwhile here in P4 at one point battling hard with what was the P2 driver Rob Sutherland, but in the end a mistake and also a long pit stop has cost him considerably as he continues his way on around here. But Ian Manners continues to press on, but I think now it's all about consolidating his P4 position and seeing if he can get back into the hunt for P3 at the very end with 20 minutes to go. Sean Domi meanwhile in P5 here, the privateer from Scotland in the Logitech G Elantra N, as he makes his way through turn number 4. Right now the number 159 driver not quite on the pace of the top 4, but still enjoying a race to remember in terms of running good pace and really not making too many mistakes whatsoever. And behind him a further 13.5 seconds down, almost 14 seconds now, as he has to give way to the GT4 class leaders. It's Rob Jackson in the SimTech Racing Veloster here, who are running in at P6. Last our TCR runners, we have all of our TCRs still in this race. 6 started, 6 still in the race. Then we come on to our MX5s, and here is your MX5 leader, and that is Murray Luca, who's currently P14 overall on circuit, running on around with a 5.2 second advantage over his main adversary and rival of Alex Williams. And the difference between the two of them is that Alex Williams making a mistake from the lead that cost him very dearly in the run through Sheen Curve and down into Stirling's, where he outbroke himself after carrying too much speed through Sheen, going onto the grass, got the car back together only to find it gone a bit deep into the braking zone, and the car went straight on into the gravel. And since then, the Symphony Esports orange driver Murray Luca has not put a foot wrong. There were a couple of very close moments earlier on, but the main thing has been his consistency, and that is what has given him this advantage so far. Alex Williams in P2. However, the Iron Brew Privateer MX5 still trying to come back strong and matching up the pace of Murray Luke. Not going slightly fast, that gap not opening up. It is gradually coming down, but only by a couple of attempts a lap. And given that the lap time of the MX5s is just over 1.5 minutes, around the 1 minute 41 mark, and that we do only have 18 minutes to go plus the final lap, on paper you would say that Williams needs to be taking approximately half a second a lap out if he wants to have a chance of taking that win. Bevan Thompson, meanwhile, third place right now in the MX5 class, making the way on down the hill. Still being chased after by Cy Anthony, 17.5 seconds behind. But Cy Anthony not quite matching the pace at the moment. Bevan Thompson at 1 point, battling hard for what was a prospective P2 in the class, but then found himself battling more and more Cy Anthony and Stephen Hilton. But with both Cy Anthony and Stephen Hilton falling a little bit away in terms of the pace, Cy Anthony now holding on to what is P4 in the class of Symphony Esports Orange. The Welshman there continuing to enjoy his day of racing the MX5 class. I think a little bit faster compared to what he's used to and what we typically see him in the GT3 class. Of course, a major start in the GT3 League at Season 8 that recently concluded. But of course, Cy Anthony here continuing to press on, and we're trying to press away from Stephen Hilton, who finds himself what is effectively almost 1.5 minutes, almost a whole lap down as he makes his way on through. And right now the number 46 driver here looking to bring home P5 and keep it on the straight and narrow all the way to the finish, as then it is Darren Sharples, the last of your runners in the MX5 class, 2 laps down at the moment after a jump to the pitch due to damage on the car, but still the privateer pushing on to the end. And we have had one retirement in the MX5 class, and that was Ollie Pimley with a damaged suspension earlier on in the race, we do believe, after an off-track. He had to jump to the pits, the tow work was done, and they could not repair the car. So we've had 2 retirements today. One in the GT4 class of Roxanne Marshall and one in the MX5 class of Ollie Pimley. Out of 21 starters, still 19 remaining, and we've still got just under 17 minutes to go. And right now, with 17 minutes or so to go, Jonathan Hitchin here charging on for the fastest lap in the GT4 class of 28.95. I believe that is the first 28 we have seen from a GT4 driver under race conditions today. There is no slowing down Jonathan Hitchin, that's one thing for certain. But the thing is, he is ahead now of what is the rest of the GT4 field. So he is now on the lead lap, technically, with Gunstone and Holloway not too far behind. And to give you an idea of where they are, well, they're just making their way out of Hawthorns and into Westfield Bend. But Hitchin, having unlapped himself, his next target will be, I believe, it's Alex Holloway, who is 14 seconds up the road from him. In fact, I'll correct myself on that one. He's 22 seconds up the road from him. So as a result, Jonathan Hitchin has still got a long way to go if he wants to try and pick his way into the top 5. As we continue to watch the battle for the GT4 lead, of course, our closest battle on circuit currently as they make the way on through Clark Curve. Sam Gunstone holding an advantage of about 5 to 6 tenths on average currently. It did close up a little bit earlier on whilst we were recapping the field. At one point, we were keeping one eye on the timings. They did get within 1.5 tenths, but it seems like Gunstone just holding them at bay for now. As they make the way up the hill and we take a quick sip of water, it does look as though Adam Holloway really trying to bite back into this race. But the problem is, of course, now as they get into these final 15 minutes, of course, the tyre freshness has now started to grade away, and that means it becomes more and more of a run on the ragged edge of the tyre, albeit these tyres will comfortably last the remainder of the race because, of course, saw the 2 drivers pit in at 50 minutes into the race, which means they will be having a shorter second stint, and therefore they can take more out the tyre, and also the car is going to be lighter by default in terms of fuel because they'll have only fueled the car to go to the end of the race. So in return, they can be more aggressive here, but Gunstone just seems to have a little bit of an advantage as they make the way out of Hawthorns and up into Westfield. But of course the traffic's not going to fall kindly all the time for Gunstone. You've seen that right now with Sean Dobie here as they make the way up towards Sheen Curve by Dingle Dale. And the thing is here, Dobie can't really put the car anywhere. And here's the thing, of course, when you are in the slower class of car, you are encouraged to hold your race in line and let the faster class come on through. And with that, as we see Dobie almost getting a linchpin there on the exit curbing of Sterling's, he's just got to simply hold his line and let the GT4s do the hard work. But in doing so, Gunstone now being caught up to it, and the gap has been slashed in half as they make the way around. That's how quickly it can turn in multiclass, as Gunstone here holding the inside line as they make the way into Paddock Hill Bend, and Holloway looks up the inside, backs out of it in the end, but you could see they're trying to tease out a potential late break from Gunstone, trying to get Gunstone to react. But Gunstone does not fall for it that time as they make the way through Druid's Bend. But now as they come on down, a little bit of oversteer there on corner exit, trying to get the power down. Gunstone a little bit too aggressive on the power, just a slight wobble at the rear of the car. And now is it Gunstone's turn to start making those tiny little errors that add up as they make the way into Surtees Bend. It's very rare we've seen an error from Gunstone, and as we ride on board with Holloway here, we're riding on board with the Cayman 718 driver. You can just see how close he is within 2 attempts as they make the way into the Pilgrim's Drop. As they come on down here, again, the difference in the straight line speeds of the cars, where the Porsche needs the toe to be able to equalise versus Gunstone's BMW M4. But right now, Holloway focusing on those corners, and this is where the Porsche is stronger. It's able to take more speed on corner apex as they both make their way over that high apex curve at Westfield as they come into Sheen. This is where Holloway needs to get close, and he does get very close. As they come down to Sterling's, he thinks about it, but he can't quite go for it in the end. He's not quite close enough. He needs to get Gunstone to make an error. But of course, Gunstone, that's one thing he doesn't do. It is making errors as they make the way into Clark Curve. And coming on through, no sign of an error from either driver here, both nailing it perfectly to the apex curbing. And as they come across the timeline to go on to lap number 52, well, this has been a battle that has gone the distance so far. It's still got distance to go, but Gunstone goes deep. A little bit of a drift there as the car comes around, and this is where Holloway can look for the move. Looks up the inside, but Gunstone covers him off there. Holloway not able to beat the BMW on braking. Looking as though there, Gunstone able to take more on the brakes, and as they make the way into Graham Hill Bend, Holloway will need to process that information, because he'll now recognise that Gunstone is the stronger of the breakers into Druids. But will he have that all the way round? That'll be the challenge as they come behind Cy Anthony there in the MX5, and I think they'll have caught up to the MX5 driver quite comfortably in terms of being able to make the way past him on the straight all the way out towards Hawthorns. But coming on through here, of course, now we can see how Holloway dropping back to 4 attempts has calmed it down a little bit as they make the way into Hawthorns here. But as they come through the right hand of Gunstone again, taking a bit more apex curve than perhaps you would like to. As meanwhile, in late drama, Murray Luca into the pits from the lead of the MX5 class, and Alex Williams carries on, and Alex Williams retakes the lead of the class with only 11 minutes to go. We're trying to figure out what exactly has happened to Murray Luca in terms of what's been the request of the stop, but I think it may just be the way the strategy's played out, and perhaps Murray Luca has not taken a full pit stop with the first stop. Perhaps it was much shorter stop than intended. We are just trying to figure that one out, but Murray Luca with a bit of last minute drama here, and it's going to completely turn the odds in favour of Alex Williams. And in fact, Bevan Thompson may have an opportunity here to go hunting after P2. In fact, he will, because Murray Luca's made his way out of the pit lane, and Bevan Thompson moves up into P2 with not long to go. And Murray Luca now has seen it all fall from his eyes. He's still in the podium places, but this is not what he's expecting, and there's not long left. He's going to have to really push it now if he wants P2. But Alex Williams, unless Williams has got a second stop on the cards, there's going to be no way back at this point. I think Murray Luca has lost out massively, and also Cy Anthony has literally got the third place driver right in front of him, and he will be galvanised by this. There's no question about it. Pacific Esports Orange right now has an opportunity to go hunting after the podium after spending so long in the lonely P4, and now it's all coming together. As they make the way on through here, we do look from Cy Anthony and Murray Luca back to the leaders of the GT4 class. And what's interesting is we see there a flash of the lights from Holloway. So Holloway now starting to try and play the mind games of look at my lights, not the road in front. And Damien Lobbett has not caught up to this at all. He is still 10 seconds off the battle for the lead. Well, Damien Lobbett's pace is faster than these two, only by a couple of attempts, but it's not coming anytime soon in terms of Lobbett being able to get into this fight. So if it is going to come, it'll be right at the end if these two really do start to take 50 shades of pace out of one another as they make the way through turn number 9 and up towards another lap. But I think Holloway is conscious of the fact that Lobbett is so close potentially in terms of pace and could close up with these two battle too hard, and as a result I think Holloway is playing the long game here, which is he's trying to pick that opportunity that will be in the final 3 laps where we really start to see things open up. We haven't got long until we've only got 5 minutes remaining. Those will be where the final laps are, but meanwhile there's drama elsewhere on circuit I'm hearing, as I believe we have had Samuel Hoop have a mistake off circuit. I believe it was at Surtees. We had Rob Jackson jump to the pits as a result, and we had a couple of off tracks as well, but Rob Jackson with some sort of incident that's cost him very dearly, and his car's had to be towed to the pits, and I wonder if it's interconnected because we also had Alex Williams and Jay Callaghan off circuit all in quick succession, but we're not quite sure what's happened. But what we can see here is that Jake Late, with that off track, has got Ian Manners closed up very rapidly indeed. So the battle for P3 in the TCR class is on here between the two Honda Civic drivers as they make the way through turn number 7 and into 8 they go. And as they come down to Sterling's corner now, Jake Lay, who was looking to be cruising to a third place here, now it's no longer a cruise, it's a fight for survival. As they make the way into turn number 9, we can see Ian Manners, they're losing out a bit of trim in terms of the pace as they made their way in the rundown clearways, and that was because they're having to navigate Williams there, the race leader of the MX5 class you see in the rear of the picture. And as they make their way into turn number 1 once again, no change at the moment, although we are hearing that Jonathan Hitchin is into the pit lane, and I believe he has jumped to the pits. I think there's been an off track for Jonathan Hitchin somewhere on circuit, and that has been a tow to the pits. Well, that's a difficult one for Jonathan Hitchin after recovering for so much of the race to see it all go wrong once again. You do have to feel for the GT4 driver, but meanwhile, as we continue to watch here the battle for P3 in the TCR class, let's not forget that Gunstone versus Holloway's on, and Gunstone will poor run coming out of Druids. Well, he's having to cover it off there, but he goes deep, coming through Graham Hill Bend, and now the fight is on with Holloway on the inside as they make the way in towards 30s. It's going to be the battle of the two German machines. It's the Porsche versus the Beamer as they make the way out of turn number 4 and make the way out towards turn number 5 as they come charging on through here right now. In the long run down, you can see how Holloway covering off the inside line as Gunstone trying to look round the outside. It's a repeat of the early stages of this battle where Gunstone had to pick his places to make overtakes, but Holloway was so strong at defending as they come into Westfield Bend, and already the damage is being done in the fact that Lobbit has already taken 2 seconds out of them on this lap through their one intricate battle through Graham Hill Bend into Surtees and Hawthorns, and if he continues at this rate, he will be there if they continue to battle like this. Meanwhile, battling for P3 in the X5 class, it's Cy Anthony on the outside, battling side by side with Thompson, Bevan Thompson, and then just ahead of them, that is Murray Luca. It's a three-way battle for P2 all the way to the finish here. It's all kicking off, and in fact, Bevan Thompson's had a major off at some point or an error as we see Cy Anthony almost losing it there as he rolls his way into Westfield Bend. He's going to get caught by Thompson here, and oh goodness me, Cy Anthony onto the grass and just missing the tyre barrier there. That could have been curtains for his race right at the final stages, but Bevan Thompson moves back up into P3 as he almost goes to the grass there through Sheen Curve. They're all on the edge right now. And indeed, all of these drivers only taking, I believe, fuel in the pits, and Murray Luca wore on a fresh set of tyres. Given the fact he had such a long pit stop, Murray Luca's decided to go all in here and go on the charge. But right now, as they come charge on through, Murray Luca has moved back up into P2. Bevan Thompson has restored his P3, and then we can see Cy Anthony falling off the podium positions in P4, but still with an opportunity later on in this race. Albeit if we keep saying later on, we're going to run out of time, and with only 5.5 minutes to go plus the final lap, time is in limited supply. And I think for Jake Late here, he'll know that all he needs to do is hold this 9/10 of a second advantage over Ian Manners with little life left in this race in terms of that amount of time remaining. But can he do so as night continues to descend here on the Brands Hatch circuit? There's not long left for our drivers, and the visibility gradually falling away as well as we look back to Cy Anthony, battle side by side here for P3 in the MX5 class with Thompson. Cy Anthony on the inside here, Ben Thompson on the outside as the Pet Speed driver there gets caught on the inside by Cy Anthony. You can see Craig Tillotson trying to pick his way on through here, and Tillotson then moved up to P6 the GT4 class with Jonathan Hitchin coming into the pits, and I think Jonathan Hitchin may be retiring the car given the extent of his pit stop. Well, we can see at the site Anthony now holding on to P3. He's had to dig a long way down in order to be able to find this P3, but can he hold it to the finish as Murray Luca is enabled to run off with P2? Well, as they make the way through Westfield, and this time Site Anthony does not take a detour across the grass. Instead, he keeps on the tarmac and therefore gives himself every opportunity to break away. We look from them to the battle for the lead of the GT4 class and overall, and Adam Holloway continues to lead here. The gap between them and Damien Lovett, 7.5 seconds. We are keeping our eyes on it because they will get closer and closer as the battling goes on. But as they come on down here in the run towards Hawthorne, you can see how Holloway literally being harassed left, right and centre as they come up into Hawthorne's. Holloway on the inside defending, Gunstone round the outside. Again, Holloway 9, he can just put the car on the inside and take his normal braking line and he'll be able to defend well. Meanwhile, Gunstone has to try and find a way to cut back. He can't as they emerge their way through Westfield Bend and now through Dingledale, but Gunstone closer with every passing of the sequence of corners. Now typically within 2.5 tenths. Gunstone's gloves are off, and as they make their way in towards Sterling's, onto the brakes they go, but he falls back a little bit coming out to Sheen, and that is where Gunstone does have a bit of a weakness. Sheen curved behind the Porsche of Holloway, just does not seem to yield him the rewards he needs. And as he makes his way out of Clark Curve here, Holloway holding on for another lap. There's not long left in the tank, and meanwhile Damien Lobbett continues to close. Now 7 seconds the gap, 3 and 20 seconds remain as they make the way through turn number 1. That's 3 minutes, and as they make the way on down and around and up the hill towards Druids Bend right now, we only have on the clock approximately 3 laps left in the GT4 class and overall to go racing with here, and it's all going to come down to the wire. And speaking of coming down to the wire, well, this may just put a spanner in the works, because we've got the battle on here for P3 in the TCR class, and it's Jay Calais defending versus Ian Manners, albeit as they make their way into Surtees with the GT4 lead battle coming up fast behind. It's only 2 seconds behind, and Manners getting the better run there out of Surtees as Calais goes on the outside into the inside run down towards Hawthorns. It's going to be the two Hondas side by side. What will the GT4s do here? Will they find themselves boxed in again? Well, Manners is going to try and go around the outside all the way. This is going to be brave, but they're still side by side on corner exit. But Ian Manners has the pace to get into P3, and he takes the position. But as they make the way on through, we look to the back of this group, and as we ride on board here with Gunstone, you can see now how the 4 in a line here, the 2 TCRs ahead of the 2 GT4s, it's going to be a tricky one to unpick here, and Holloway's got to try and find a way to get past the TCRs, but not give Gunstone every opportunity to capitalise and get a good run. And as they make the way down clearways here, you can see Holloway opens the door, and Gunstone makes sure to stick his foot right in it there to say, no, you hold that door open, as they make the way out to the final corner. He does not want to lose any sight of Holloway in the run. They've only got 2 more laps to go. Damien Lobbett now is within 4.5 seconds. He is flying, is Damien Lobbett. He's not too far behind, and as they make the way through turn number 1, now Gunstone has to pick his way past. Where's Ian Manners as they head up the hill and into the braking zone? He'll do it under braking here. Of course, on that inside line, it's going to cost him a bit of time as Damien Lobbett sets a personal best of a 29.04. Lobbett is flying. Meanwhile, Alex Williams has had a mistake coming out of Sterling's, but he's brought it back together. He's still leading the MX5 class by over 30 seconds. I think he's safe for now, but we're just taking a quick look at that because Alex Williams making an error with only a limited number of laps to go. That's not ideal for the health of his race win. Meanwhile, we look back to Adam Holloway here, who's got himself enough of a breathing room this time that he doesn't have to go defensive into turn number 5. And as they make the way out of Hawthorns and down to Westfield, well, Gunstone is closing. And the thing is, as you see in the rear of the picture there, guess who else is closing? It is Damien Lobbett here, who still needs to pick his way past the 2 TCRs of Calais and Manners. But if he can do that in quick succession here, he may just find himself right on the back of the lead battle as they go on to the final lap, depending on whether Holloway can keep Gunstone behind and whether the 2 of them closed up. It is going to be interesting to see, with 1 more lap to go, just how they all concertina together. If they do, the top 2 right now are definitely in it to win it. But can Damien Lobbett find a way on in if they should battle hard? Well, we'll find out here as they go on to the final lap. Adam Holloway leads in the GT4 class, and you can see the flash of lights from Gunstone. Gunstone trying to get into the head as he sets a personal best of 29.542. That's 3 tenths gained as they make the way up the hill. Gunstone already taking a look, swerving from inside to outside. They're trying to get into the head of Holloway, but he does not respond as Adam Holloway. He's seen it all before. He's seen the tapes of Nigel Mansell doing dummies on Nelson Piquet. He's not going to fall for it at the Brands Hatch circuit here today. And as they make the way through 3 and up towards 4, in towards the braking zone they go. Holloway right now just needs to hold his line and hold true to the pace he's got in the car. Have faith in what he can do. And as they make the way out to Surtees and heading up towards Hawthorns here, holding nicely right now. Meanwhile, behind, we can see Jay Calais here still with Ian Manners just ahead of him, with Manners only 4 tenths clear as they make the way up towards Hawthorns Bend. And we can tell you that Damien Lobbett has cleared these 2, and you saw him there briefly going through the camera. Meanwhile, Murray Lucas had, I believe, a slight off track, but bring it back up to speed. But we're going to cut away from that and look to our 2 leaders in the GT4 class, and this is the worst time they can pick to peel their way between some MX5s as right now. Adam Holloway losing out there through the run through Sheen, and the same for Gunstone as they come through the penultimate corner, and it's going to be the final corner away from here. Murray Luca literally on the racing line here. It could all come down to the start-finish stretch as they make their way through the right-hander of Clark Curve. It's a sprint to the line, but as the checker flag awaits them. It's going to be Adam Holloway from BPR Esports who takes the win here today. And as Sam Gunstone in the GT4 class, Damien Lobbit in P3, they're completing the GT4 podium. Meanwhile, it will be shortly, I believe, El Nil who will come on through to take the win in the TCR class as he comes through the final corner here and makes his way through the right-hander a lap ahead of his peers to make it the TCR win. 2 TCR wins out of 2 since Daytona for El Nil in the Impulse Racing Elantra. Congratulations to him. And whilst we do wait for our MX5 winner to come on through, a huge congratulations to the combination of Ian Manners and Jay Colley in the TCR class. Ian Manners P2, Jay Colley P3, with Rob Sutherland in the end having to come into the pits right at the end of the race. And I wonder if that was some sort of penalty of some description, as meanwhile, where is our MX5 leader? Well, here he is, ladies and gentlemen. He's held off the fight from Murray Luca. He's held off the charge of the rest of the class, and as he comes online with a mistake or two in his pocket, Alex Williams is your MX5 winner here today with an advantage of 32 seconds to the line ahead of Cy Anthony, with Murray Luca having to come into the pits after a late spin. Well, it's going to be Cy Anthony in the end who brings on home in a surprise, and I think he'll be shocked with this one as well, but he'll be coming home P2 in the MX5 class as he makes his way into the final corner here. And how he has come a long way. The second most places gained of overall drivers today, 5 places gained, and he'll be pleased as punch for that as he comes to the line. And a big mention as well to third place driver Murray Luca, who was on course to potentially win today. Will be battling for the win, but a couple of mistakes and a pit stop that cost him a huge amount of time, cost him that opportunity to fight for the win at the finish. But fantastic racing all the way around, ladies and gentlemen. And well, let's take you through those race results. So we come on to our results then, starting with our overall classification. As always, we can see here after 90 minutes of racing in the UKSimRacing Multiclass Enduro for November 2022 at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, combining the GT4, the TCR and the MX5 classes together. Adam Holloway, your overall winner in the end in what was the GT4 class by only 0.4 of a second over Sam Gunstone, with Damien Lobbit completing the overall podium and also the GT4 podium. Then Samuel Hooper P4, Alex Holloway P5. Those are top 5 all at GT4s before our TCR winner in P6 overall of El Nil, bringing home the win there comfortably, 1 lap ahead of his class contemporaries. Craig Tiddleston, the GT4 P7, ahead of second and third place finishers in the TCR class of Ian Manners and Jay Colley, in a superb battle all the way to the end for them. Rob Sutherland missing out on a podium in the TCR class right at the end. Unfortunate for the RD SimSport Privateer in what was an absolutely brilliant piece of racing from Sutherland in terms of the battling we saw earlier on between himself, Manners and Colley, but not to be today. And then seeing completing the top 10 with Rob Sutherland, best of the rest in P11 overall, Sean Dobie, the TCR class driver, the privateer from what was in the Hyundai Elantra in the lovely Logitech G livery. Then special mentions to our MX5 class winner, 13th place overall of Alex Williams, the privateer in the Iron Brew machine, finished ahead of Cy Anthony from Symphony Esports Orange and Murray Luca for Symphony Esports Orange to complete the MX5 podium. The 3 drivers 13th, 14th and 15th overall. And then of course we now come on to what is the individual classes. And we can see here, starting with the GT4s, your winner of Adam Holloway, as we said earlier, by only 0.4 of a second. And in the end, the pair finishing 4 seconds clear of Damien Lobbit. And we thought Lobbit might have had a chance to close on up if Gunstone and Holloway had battled hard on the last couple of laps. They were battling hard, to be fair, but not fully side by side. And I think some of the other classes and drivers being laps down may have interdicted with that. And Damien Lobbit, I think, would have been ruining what could have been an opportunity to win if it were not for an early mistake and also the need for a couple more laps. Samuel Hooper P4 ahead of Alex Holloway P5. The two of them separated by only 5 seconds on line, and a big shout out to the pair of them for pushing hard all the way through it. And Samuel Hooper with a great battling with Damien Lobbit, but in the end falling behind because the pace just was not there compared to what Lobbit was able to deploy. Craig Tiddleston finishing P6, a lap down on the class, but all the way to the end. And then the 2 retirees are Jonathan Hitchin, 8 laps from the end, and Roxanne Marshall retiring early on in the opening 25 minutes, 47 laps down. Coming on to the TCR class then, we can see here in the TCRs, your winner by a lap, El Neil in the Impulse Racing Elantra, and ahead of Ian Manners from Samside Azure and Jay Clay, the privateer there. That's your top three, with Rob Sutherland at P4, Sean Dobie P5, and Simtech Racing's Rob Jackson finishing a further lap down on the class in P6, but still enjoying the racing, no doubt. And then coming on to the MX5 classification, we can see here Alex Williams taking the win in the end by 32 seconds over Cy Anthony. But that 32-second margin may be hiding all the battling we saw between Alex Williams and Murray Luca earlier on. And of course, Cy Anthony finding his way up through the class over the course of the race, having qualified very far down in the class towards the back, but just keeping it smart, keeping it consistent. He had his off tracks, but what didn't dissuade him from pushing on was those off tracks, and in the end finishing P2 ahead of Murray Luca, who in turn, with a very long pit stop, losing out considerably with that second pit stop in particular, which wasn't needed on the schedule for our other drivers, and in the end still on the podium, but I think wondering what could have been for Symphony Esports Orange behind his teammate. Bevan Thompson, the privateer there, P4, just ahead of Stephen Hilton, with Darren Sharples at P6, 2 laps down, and then Ollie Pimley, our sole MX5 retiree for Symphony Esports Gold, retiring at 30 laps down with that P7. But those are the race results, ladies and gentlemen. Fantastic racing, and congratulations to our finishers all around. But you know what time that means? It's now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you do want to know more about the UK sim racing community, why not check out our official UK Sim Racing website, that's uksimracing.co.uk. Alternatively, if you do not want to head to our official website, you can always go to our official Twitter, where you can hear all the latest news on upcoming series, and also the leagues that the UK Sim Racing official team are competing in, and the Twitter site is of course twitter.com/UKSimRacing_. Also, a big thank you to our affiliates. And they are once again Swello Ameda Sim Racing Coaching, their YouTube URL there on screen, and Swello Ameda being one of the senior authorities on iRacing when it comes to the ultimate coaching package just for you, in terms of whether you're looking for something offline, online directly with Swello himself, or alternatively something in between where you're looking to gain a tenth, a whole second, or looking to improve your consistency. There is a coaching course for everybody out there, and Swello Ameda, why should you listen to them? Well, for the simple reason they are a multi-champion in the official iRacing series, and indeed their word goes a long way in helping you tune your racing experience. We then come on to Race Anywhere, and you can see their web address, raceanywhere.co.uk, the provider of curated sim racing equipment, and to only stock products that represent excellent value for the sim racing community. Also, Demon Tweaks, the provider of the most complete and innovative motorsport product range available worldwide. So no matter what your level of discipline, Demon Tweaks could help drive you to realise your motorsport ambitions. Their web address, demon-tweaks.com. And last but not least, Amazon, the company striving to be the Earth's most customer-centric company, the Earth's best employer, and the Earth's safest place to work through the provision of concepts pioneered by Amazon, including but not limited to one-click shopping, Amazon Web Services, and also Fire tablets. Well, I guess the question is, ladies and gentlemen, with our multi-class Enduros complete for 2022, what lies next in the calendar? Well, firstly, if you're looking for something a little bit Christmassy themed, well, stay tuned for the UK Sim Racing Christmas special, which will be taking place on Sunday the 18th of December this year, and it will be brought live to you by myself. I'll be in the commentary booth covering all the racing action, and indeed if you are part of the UK Sim Racing Discord, be sure to jump in there and ask about it if you want to get signed up. We don't have the details here, but it's been held under wrappers at the moment, but you can imagine it's going to be a fun one, and one for everybody to get involved with, a little bit of festive frolicking and fun within the UK Sim Racing community. But also just a point with regards to what lies ahead in 2023. We do have 2 new major leagues coming up, and indeed we also have some new leagues also on their way. But speaking of the major leagues, we have the upcoming return of the GT3 League Season 9, as you can see on screen here, and it's going to be 8 rounds of racing spanning the globe, starting off on what is the 8th of January, Sunday the 8th of January 2023 at Silverstone, and on a weekly basis making its way around the world to Daytona, to Monza, to Magny Cours, Nürburgring, Bathurst, Interlagos and Sebring. And if you're interested in signing up for it's a combination of sprint and feature races, and it will all be broadcast live on YouTube, then do head to our official website. In particular, head to uksimracing.co.uk /UKSR-leagues-SEP UK-Oct and follow the on-screen instructions in order to sign up. And also make sure to join the UK Sim Racing Discord. It's a requirement to race in any UK Sim Racing events, but also if you do get stuck or want any further details, then all the information is there. You can get in touch with the organisers. Indeed, all information regarding Season 9 is available in the UK Sim Racing Discord. Now, I may be hearing some of you already say, but what if I'm not a fan of GT3s? What if I like something perhaps a little bit spicier in terms of a tail-happy rear end? Well, we can oblige for you as well, and that is with the Porsche Cup Season 5. Backed by popular demand as well, after the success of Season 4, where we wrapped up, of course, at the Nürburgring and Nordschleife Loop circuit. Season 5 will be kicking off over 9 weeks of racing at 9 unique tracks, and there'll be 18 races with sprints and features in every single one, and the story will start on what is Thursday, the 5th of January 2023 at Alton Park, continuing to Interlagos, Motorsport, Hockenheim, Ritzkogen, Belle Isle, Road America, Catalunya and Sebring. And again, if you do want to sign up to race in the Porsche 992 Cup car, it's of course the Porsche Super Cup specification with no ABS or traction control, which is why these are very spicy machines to race, then do head to our official website, and again that link at uksimracing.co.uk/UKSR-leagues-SEP-Oct, and follow the on-screen instructions, and also make sure to join the UK Sim Racing Discord, so that way you're eligible to go racing, but also all the information regarding Season 5 of the Porsche Cup is available on our official Discord. Indeed, both series are available, and it's an entry fee on either series of £12.50, but indeed you're getting huge bang for your buck in terms of the money, and well, it's worth racing them, I can tell you that, and it's open to all classes of driver. Whether you're a pro or a rookie, there is a class for you, and indeed you'll be matched amongst your peers and get to enjoy some fantastic racing. With plenty of racing lying ahead of us, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we do, of course, just remind you, stay tuned up for the UK Sim Racing Christmas special this coming Sunday on the 18th of December. But until then, we have been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.